Welcome to our trash revolution.
I'm so upset. Oh my God.
The guy!
Welcome to the Young Turks. Chinky and Kasparian with you guys. Huge day ahead. So number one, we have excellent developments on ICE, in my opinion, because they're retreating. And Border Patrol will get to all the details on that. I think we have a good update on the government shutdown. That all of a sudden 7 Republicans are kind of on our side.
No, they're not. No, they're not.
No. They voted with us. Let's put it this way: they voted with us.
Did they vote? We'll get to the details.
We'll get to the deets. That's what the show's for, is the deets.
Yeah.
Okay. And then unfortunately, Israel is on the warpath, and
when are they not?
Of course. So they're currently in the White House, plotting to force America into another strike against Iran, and this one would be far worse. So lots of stories to get to, and finally, we're going to launch something called Operation Consequences tonight. What is that? You'll find out a little bit later in the program. Casper.
I was gonna make a perverted joke, but I'm not gonna do that. Anyway, let's move on to stories that are not perverted. This is an example.
Kristi Noem and Stephen Miller are liars. Any administration that allows them to continue in office is rotten to its core. The vote on appropriations is coming up Thursday night, and Democrats will not let the Republicans move forward if ICE and DHS funding are in the bill.
On this vote, the yeas are 45, the nays are 55.
Looks like Senate Democrats certainly took that promise to heart. Every single one of them voted against a Department of Homeland Security funding bill, which of course does jeopardize funding for the agency entirely if they can't come up with a solution or an agreement with Republicans by 11:59 p.m. Friday night. Now, as you heard in that video, the final vote was 45-55, meaning it didn't come close to the 60 votes necessary to get past the legislative filibuster and approve the bill. Now, Cenk, before I tell you about all the Republicans who voted against the bill, your 2 cents.
Yeah, so you need overwhelming American support for the Democrats to have just enough spine to oppose Trump. And apparently we got there, so good job, America. You gave the Democrats a tiny bit of a spine. And we had some Republicans kind of join us, but we'll explain that in a second. But overall, after you get all the facts, I need to discuss one more thing with you guys, which is, yes, but what's going to happen next? Because there is a plan for what's going to happen next, and it's interesting. So let's give you the whole story.
Now, if you've been following the response, or the reactions, I should say, to Renee Good and Alex Pretti's fatal shootings in Minnesota, then you would know why Democrats voted against funding DHS. Every single one of them did vote against it in the Senate because they want concessions from the Trump White House in regard to the conduct of immigration enforcement agents. So that includes banning immigration officers from wearing masks, which I think is a reasonable ask, and requiring them to wear body cameras and visible identification. Guys, for me, it's the bare minimum. You need to be able to identify yourself when you are working for law enforcement, and body cameras are beneficial for everyone, including the immigration enforcement agents who might have not done anything wrong and want to prove it through their body cameras. And they also want, meaning the Democrats, an end to random immigration sweeps and raids. They want requirements for judicial warrants for stop and searches, and requirements for immigration officers to follow the same use of force standards as community law enforcement. They also want an independent, and this is to me one of the most important asks, they want an independent investigation into the fatal shootings of both Renee Good and Alex Pretti. Now, on to the Republicans. That was a more interesting element to this story for me because why? Why would the Republicans vote against this? Well, it turns out that 8 voted against it. Although Senate Majority Leader John Thune did so for procedural reasons. We'll get to that in just a second. So let's show you the list of the Republicans who voted against it. So 7 Republicans opposed it, including Senators Budd, Johnson, Lee, Paul, Moody, Rick Scott, Tuberville, and again, John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, voted against it specifically for procedural reasons. Now, the other Republicans cited concerns about the ballooning federal deficit and what they saw as the failure of the so-called appropriations minibus to significantly cut spending. My favorite part about all of this is you have Senator Rick Scott. He cites, government spending is out of control. And I agree, government spending is absolutely out of control, and he cited the deficit. But then he proceeds to say, and I disagree about cutting spending for DHS. Okay, Cenk, any comment on that?
Yeah, so a couple of things here. First, on those Republicans, if they're talking about spending is too much, including DHS, well, that's literally what I said on the show yesterday. I said, why are you spending another $64 billion on Department of Homeland Security? They already had one giant influx just a little while ago on the huge budget, right? They already have tons and tons of money. They're already giving $50,000 signing bonuses, and they can't possibly work through all that money. And they're saying, okay, and another $10 billion to ICE. If you are a fiscal conservative, I think it's a no-brainer to vote against that. But Anna's right that the Rick Scotts and there's 2 different camps. There's the Rand Paul camp, which is more close to Tom Massey, like, I'm uncomfortable with all the spending, including DHS. And then there's the Tuberville and Rick Scott contingent that's like, well, yeah, DHS and ICE and pork and military and waste. We love all of that, but we just haven't hurt the American people enough. So in the rest of the bill, I mean, maybe we could take more from the average American, cut more Medicare or Medicaid or something that helps that people that aren't my donors at all.
More police state, less social safety net. Basically, is the point that's being made. Now, I want to just kind of give you a sense of what is being worked out between Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, the top Democrat in the Senate, and President Donald Trump, because it does appear that they're working on some sort of agreement or deal that would prevent a prolonged government shutdown. So as the New York Times reports, under the tentative framework, Senator Schumer and President Trump discussed the measure funding DHS would be broken off for more negotiations, while the other 5 bills would be approved, funding the bulk of the federal government for the remainder of the fiscal year. I don't really understand why we don't do that already anyway. I think that's the right way to go about this. The Department of Homeland Security, as the Times continues to write, would then be funded under a separate short-term bill. One sticking point, though, appears to be the length of time for that stopgap bill, which would keep the department funded at current levels. Democrats have pushed for a maximum of 2 weeks. Republicans apparently want more, and Democrats do not want to prolong the negotiations. So any final thoughts on that, Cenk?
Yeah, I have a couple of final thoughts. So look, so what's gonna happen next is, as Anna pointed out, they're gonna split it, but they're not gonna split it all the way. What they're gonna do is split the rest of the budget and just DHS. So to answer Anna's question of, wait, why don't they split it all? Why don't we vote one by one? I have a different opinion on DHS than I might about the Pentagon, or I might have about other programs. Well, that's exactly why they don't normally split it.
Poison
so
pills.
like they want to put as much pork in there as possible, stuff it with pork, so they can say, hey, you don't want military? Military's in, we're all gonna die. Okay, so that's why you have to approve the $48 billion that I put for my donors in the other part of the bill.
But DHS spending already has a baked in poison pill, if you will, because DHS also deals with FEMA. Does it not?
Yeah, so look, there's a lot of reasons that poison pills are a little bit different. Poison pill is to kill a bill, right?
Yeah.
So, but they put in like a sugar pill.
Okay, yeah, sugar pill's fine.
I made that up. Okay, so and they're like, And they'll always point to that one provision out of millions. By the way, if you're conservative, you agree with me more than even the left does. Like, they're like, are you gonna let people die after a tornado? But I'm like, yeah, but the other part of the bill has nothing to do with FEMA or the tornado. It's just a direct $8 billion subsidy to your top donor. Shut up, you're dying, killing people in tornadoes, right? So that's the kind of BS. And of course, establishment media loves that. And they focus on those things and not the overall bill. They never talk about the pork and the waste and the donor money, etc. So if it was up to me, I'd break it up and I'd vote one by one. These are called omnibus bills when you squeeze everything together. And look, I know the Venga omnibus is coming, but it's not gonna lead to any kind of party for us. It's gonna be a party for the donors.
True.
Finally, on the request that they have, look, that Anna read to you earlier, if we can get the masks off and the badges on and get them to get warrants, already that's like, even though it's the bare minimum, it's still a big win. Okay, why? Because we've gotten them back into our constitutional system of government.
Yes.
Because what Trump is doing is he's testing the limits. What if I don't follow the Constitution on X, Y, and Z? And if we get him back inside the Constitution, that's already a huge win. Then we're having policy debates, and that's normal, right? So, and then lastly, I think the toughest one is going to be to end the random immigration sweeps, because that's basically saying no more mass deportation.
Right.
And that's where the extreme right is gonna push back a lot, as we'll show you later in the show.
That's right, so we'll see how that plays out. We'll follow the story and update you as it develops. For now though, why don't we move on to our next story where that topic is gonna definitely come up again. Let's watch.
In my meetings with Governor Walz, AG Ellison, and Mayor Fry, as well as state and local law enforcement, again, I appreciate they all acknowledge that we do have federal immigration laws in this country that have been passed by Congress, and that ICE is in fact a legitimate law enforcement agency charged with enforcing those laws. I'm not here because the federal government has carried this mission out perfectly. First thing I said to senior staff when I walked in here is what I told you earlier. I didn't come here looking for photo ops or headlines. I come here looking for solutions.
Trump's border czar Tom Homan struck a bit of a different tone from Border Patrol head Greg Bovino, whose leadership on immigration enforcement in Minnesota contributed to a chaotic environment and also contributed to 2 American citizens getting shot and killed by ICE and Border Patrol. Now, here's what Bovino's orders look like, just to kind of give you a sense of the change in tone, if you will.
Arrest as many people that touch you as you want to. Those are the general orders all the way to the top. Everybody it if they touch you. You hear what I'm saying? Less legals. We're gonna look at shipping tractor trailer loads of that. So you catch what it's all about us now, it ain't about them. Professional, legal, ethical, moral, you know what we're talking about, legal, ethical, moral. You're on camera. But other than that, it's what we do. City is a team. Fire city.
It's gonna hurt, interesting. Cenk, your 2 cents.
Yeah, so look, I'm glad they're retreating. I don't know if they had to give Tom Homan another bag of money to get him to do this job. But I mean, and it's a hell of a retreat to Tom Homan, right? It's not like he's a buttercup.
No, he's not. Actually, if anything, Tom Homan is very serious about immigration enforcement. And I think he understands the importance of optics and professionalism in order to be able to carry out the job effectively. So for those who are worried about more people getting deported, I actually think under Tom Homan's leadership, there will be more deportations.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. And we'll see what. But most importantly is what are the rules of engagement going forward? Because you saw that video there, and the rules of engagement were, you're on tape, so keep that in mind. You saw him say moral, ethical, legal. But outside of that, this city is ours, and if anybody touches you, you take them down, et cetera, et cetera.
I think the thing about the tractor trailers of less lethal weapons coming in, like how giddy he was about that. I mean, it's just, there's just a noticeable difference in the way Tom Homan was speaking at this press conference today versus how we've seen Bovino carry himself, period, at all times.
One more quick thing about that. So guys, a lot of times, whether it's military or a situation like this, the tone of the commanding officer is enormously important. So if they're strict about following the rules, then that'll flow down in the organization and people will be strict. If they say, hey, follow the bare minimum of the rules and then have at it, Hoss, otherwise, that gives permission, and then people take further license with that because they think, no, he means loosen it all the way up. And so you see that not just in America, but in countries all across the world. So that's why the tone at the top is so important.
100%. Now, back to Tom Homan, because his press conference is worth getting into. Now, after Alex Pretti was fatally shot, Trump decided to demote Bovino. He is no longer in Minnesota, and he is soon expected to retire soon. And Tom Homan was brought in. He's gonna report to Donald Trump, at least that's what Trump said. Trump tasked Border Patrol or Border Czar Homan to take over those operations in Minnesota. And Homan discussed the extremely important agreements, and I do agree they're extremely important agreements that he received from state and local leaders in Minnesota. I personally think this is a good sign, and this is what I've been asking for. So let's take a look.
I will highlight that the Minnesota State Prison System under the Department of Corrections have been honoring ICE detainers. And we appreciate that important collaboration, and we're going to expand upon that. I'm also pleased to announce I had a very good meeting with Attorney General Ellison, and he has clarified for me that county jails may notify ICE of the release dates of criminal public safety risks so ICE can take custody of them upon the release from the jail. Give us access to the illegal alien public safety threat and the safety and security of a jail. It's common sense. It's safer for the community, it's safer for the agent, and they're safer for the alien. This is common sense cooperation that allows us to draw down on the number of people we have here. Yes, I said it, draw down the number of people here. Because we have the efficiency and safety of the jails and the prison.
For me personally, you might disagree, but for me personally, that part of his press conference was the thing that made me most optimistic, because it shows some sort of collaboration and negotiation between federal and state and local leadership. And it's all in this pursuit of bringing the temperature down and ending the chaos that we're seeing on the streets. Now, whether or not it actually happens, we're gonna have to wait and see. I've learned to not be too optimistic, and I don't wanna say that things are gonna be way better moving forward. We're gonna have to see if these things develop in a way that's better for the local communities in Minnesota, while also allowing immigration enforcement to do their jobs and get the actual criminals out of the country. And by the way, I should note that a Trump administration official spoke to Reuters and told them that there would be a shift to a more targeted approach to immigration enforcement as opposed to what we've been seeing on the streets.
So now let me make a point that that is more nuanced about sanctuary cities, okay? And so sanctuary cities do two different things. One is protect the victims of crime. So if they're undocumented, I'm reporting a mugging, or my kid was killed, or I've been raped. Those type of things. We do not want to say, okay, now we're turning you over to ICE or Border Patrol after you do that, because then nobody will report crimes and it'll be terrible for everyone involved. So that part of sanctuary cities I agree with. There are other parts that I agree with. But there was also the part where if you have an undocumented immigrant who committed a crime, they served their sentence, that city would not then turn them over to ICE. And I think that part makes no sense.
I agree.
So, and by the way, if you say, oh, no way, that we can't have that, the real left wing position is that, okay, do you know that sanctuary cities didn't exist during Obama? And that the reason Obama was able to deport so many people is, one, he's mainly stopped them at the border. That's another long story. But also because they didn't have this provision. So DHS, et cetera, could go in to those cities and say, just give me the criminals that are about to be released from prison who are undocumented, and those cities would, right? I think that is a very fair ask. So if you're on the left and you say, no way, we have to protect even the people who are undocumented criminals, And by the way, to be fair, that served their time, right?
I don't care.
No, it's fine.
We have our own homegrown criminals to deal with, okay? Like we don't need to import them from all over the world.
I get it. I'm just saying there's a range of opinions on it, and I get it. Everybody feels a little differently, but I think that the majority of the country, and I happen to agree, would say no, that part of the sanctuary cities is not a good idea. And it looks like here in Minnesota, we're getting to kind of a default compromise. And a compromise that I think a lot of people, even if you don't particularly like it, wherever you are on the political spectrum, that the great majority of the country would like, which is get the ICE off the streets, stop the mass deportations with a warrantless,
entry into
the homes and the mass and no badges. Get rid of all that unconstitutional stuff. But yes, when an undocumented criminal has been detained, we hand them over to ICE. I think the country would actually love that compromise, if you ask me.
So this press conference was also the second example of Homan kind of differentiating himself from other Trump administration officials following a fatal shooting. So let's take a look at that.
The new video of Alex Pretti is now circulating. Your reaction to that, and do you think law enforcement could have played a role if, like, let's say Minneapolis police were able to respond to that? Have those top law enforcement officials said they'll help or do anything to help these agents who are out here?
I'm not going to comment on any of these shootings. I said from day one, I said on any of these shootings, as a career law enforcement officer, we'll let the investigation roll out, let the investigation play out, and let it go where it goes. I'm not going to come out and make any comments that I think is right, wrong. Do I have an opinion? Yeah, my personal opinion, but I'm not going to share that with you. I'm going to tell you, let the investigation play out and see where it goes.
I appreciate that. That is the right thing to do as a government official.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. How about you don't come out and refer to someone that was just gunned down, an American citizen, as a domestic terrorist or an assassin? Like, what kind of unprofessional crap is that? So I appreciate that Homan is withholding commentary.
Yeah, two things about that. So Kristi Noem said the other day, look, I was just following the orders of the president and Stephen. Let's note that Stephen Miller is in the same sentence as the president in terms of the head of Department of Homeland Security reporting into Stephen Miller.
Yeah.
That technically does not have a role that large, but is apparently running a giant portion of the White House. But okay, so that's her basically saying, well, they asked me to do it and I did it, and now I'm in trouble. Yeah, duh, that's called working for Trump. Trump always asks you to go too far, and then if it doesn't work out and the American people react poorly, then he throws you under the bus. And that's what's happened here. That's why Homan's here and Noem is on the outs and Bovino's already gone, right? So now the second part of it is, I just want to take a moment here again to note that I think these are some of the most effective protests of my lifetime. So I want to thank the American people, especially, let's keep it real, pretty much exclusively the left and independents. I didn't see too many right-wingers out there, but if you were out there, then bless your heart for actually believing in the Constitution and believing in not treading on you. But I didn't see a lot of that. So guys, you did it, and you pushed back. But not only did you push back in big numbers in an effective way, but you did the most important thing. It takes courage to take a punch, not to throw a punch. Okay, so nobody threw bricks through windows. There was no fires. There was not, the mass criminality sometimes that follows a protest. The protesters don't ask for that criminality, but in this case, they were able to make sure somehow that it didn't happen at all, because any kind of criminality like that ruins a protest because it allows the government to justify a much bigger crackdown. And that didn't happen here. The protesters were incredibly courageous, and they took the punch. And just like the civil rights movement taking a punch, it worked because it galvanized the rest of the country to go, we don't want it. We don't want you punching fellow American citizens like that, or in this case, shooting them and gunning them down in the streets. So I think those protesters are incredibly brave, not just in Minnesota, but throughout the country. And they made a big difference. And I'll give one more credit to America, because when protesters show up in places like Iran, they get gunned down. But when protesters showed up here, yes, a couple were gunned down. Obviously, that's what's leading to all of this. But then the government, even the Trump administration, was like, yeah, we can't do that, okay? So when you do it right and you do it in scale like this, beautiful. Thank you, America, for standing up for all of our constitutional rights. And so as you see it being rolled back here, and even Tom Homan saying we're rolling it back, I think you did it, and I'm proud of you.
I think the Iran story is a little more complicated than that, but I hear you. We got to take a break. Let's do that. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the update on the government funding bill, because an update broke in the middle of the segment. This news cycle is, we'll be right back.
All right, let's go to YouTube members. Ronan DLB said, it's terrible that we have to negotiate for the government to obey the law. This is where we are. That's true, and I wish that weren't the case, but we often have to do that. But you know what? We have to be ever vigilant to maintain this democracy and this republic. So unfortunately, it comes with the territory, because power begets more power, and it leads to more corruption and solidifying of the elites at the top. We have to always be vigilant against that, and we have been in this case. Again, I couldn't be more proud of all you guys. Box writes in, I prefer Tom. I find it hard to believe it could be worse. On the other hand, TC Flo Clyde says Homan is just a cosmetic change, sadly. So interesting disagreement there.
Hold on, pause. I would agree with you, but there's one thing that tells me he's gonna handle this differently, and it's the fact that he's negotiating with state and local leaders and made a point to mention that and emphasize that during his press conference. But also, look, I don't want Americans to be referred to as terrorists and assassins after they've been gunned down by militarized, federal agents. And he's never done that. And I think the fact that you had Noam and Stephen Miller and Greg Bovino and all these people coming out and defaming American citizens like that after they were killed, that did nothing but escalate the situation even more. So I'm gonna wait and see. I'm gonna reserve judgment. Like I said, I'm a little bit optimistic, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw things from Homan that we didn't like. So let's just wait and see.
I think a lot of other shows would say to one of the two people who are disagreeing within our member comments, how dare you, you're wrong, the other guy's 100% right. But we love that you're both here, and there's nothing wrong with your disagreement.
100%, no, I love it, I love it. And you're not wrong, you're not wrong to be hesitant, okay? Because I feel the same way. I just think that there are examples of Homan being at least marginally better already.
Yeah,
so.
Stoned Assassin, which is a funny handle, says, Cenk loved the haircut, playa. Like, I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying. Along those lines, Liz Moskrop, there's no way I said that right. Looking fly tonight, Cenk. Anna is stunning, just beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, we appreciate you. Back to other important stuff. OG Bernie says, let's hold the Dems and the GOP accountable. Now you're talking our language. I got Young Turks written all over it. Trevor Gata writes in, thanks to whoever gave me the gifted membership a few days ago. You're an American hero. I wish there was a way to turn off receiving them though, since I'm a Prime member on Twitch and also a YouTube TDR member. Okay, first of all, we love you for all of that. That's awesome. Second of all, guys, if you have Amazon Prime, you can actually get free membership on Twitch and we still get the money. And it takes about 30 seconds, tyt.com/prime. Thanks for doing all that, but thank you for gifting the memberships, because most people don't have it. It gives them a chance to check out all the different things like Old School and Operation Joy and our past programming, and they love it and they stay longer, and it builds the community. So you guys are awesome for doing that. Let's go to Twitch, speaking of that. Mr. Scruffy04 says, Chuck uses a dirty word. Is that supposed to impress us? A lot of people wrote in similarly. Octo Squiddy says, ooh, Chucky's getting sassy. He said a naughty. Hey, Charles, can I call you Charles? Go F yourselves, Chuck.
Damn.
Okay, yourself. Mongoose Dragon at tyt.com asks, hey, whatever happened to the alleged Charlie Kirk killer? I guess they're working on it. I'm sure they're working on it, however they're working on it. And I'm out of time. We've got more coming up. TYT, Cenk, Anna, and Caroline. Caroline upgraded, and I think you could do that through the join button too. Not I think you can. Test it out. Maybe a couple hundred of you upgrade to premium, see how it turns out. No, seriously, thank you for doing that. It makes a huge difference. We appreciate you so much. And Melody loves music, and with it, Gal gifted 5 memberships. All American heroes. Much love, Casper.
So the update on the funding bill for the government isn't really much of an update. We did cover it. So it does appear that the Democrats in the Senate and Trump have come up with an agreement where they're gonna pass all of the other government agency or pass funding for the government agencies, with the exception of DHS, and I guess the negotiations over DHS will continue. Okay, with that in mind, we can move on to something a little different. Same topic, different angle, let's get into it.
New video of Alex Pretti is the man shot and killed by federal agents over the weekend. But this video is from another encounter that was more than a week before he was gunned down. The video was first posted by the news movement and appears to show Pretti, here in the brown jacket and hat, kicking out the taillight of an SUV.
Again, that is a new video featuring Alex Pretti in an entirely separate interaction with immigration enforcement. News movement obtained that video and its authenticity was confirmed by BBC. Now we'll show you more of that video in just a moment, but first, Cenk, does that new information change your mind about the shooting incident in which Alex Pretti was killed?
Not 1%. So 2 points about it. We'll talk more after we give you details, sort of reaction, etc. But one is it was 11 days beforehand. Are we all held accountable for what we did 11 days before we get shot? That had nothing to do with the shooting at all. But second of all, we're now killing people over taillights?
Well, look, here's what I want to know, and this is very relevant. Later in the show, we're going to talk about Ken Klippenstein's most recent reporting about the watch lists that Americans are being put on, including protesters. And so given the fact that Pretti had this interaction with immigration enforcement earlier, 11 days earlier, first of all, we still don't know the identities of the individuals who opened fire and killed Alex Pretti. And were those immigration enforcement officers, those Border Patrol officers, the same ones that were in that vehicle that he kicked the taillight of? Like these are the kinds of things that need to be answered through an independent investigation. That being said, obviously you shouldn't do what Pretti did in that video from 11 days earlier. You shouldn't do that, okay? Yeah. Like obviously that's not a good thing to do. That also doesn't justify gunning someone down.
Yeah. So Anna, look, first of all, we definitely want the independent investigation, not just for Pretti, but for Renee Good as well.
Yes.
So that's super important. Secondly, if they had come out of the car, which they did, by the way, and they beat him down, and that's where they broke his ribs. So that's a whole nother thing that they arguably be held accountable for. But if they had arrested him for doing property damage, yeah, I get it. That was property damage, right?
So let's actually watch the video because
but the last part is, as your dad would say, yes, but none of this is related to the shooting because it happened so long ago that, as your dad says, who cares?
Who cares?
Right. So, but okay, let's discuss.
Yeah. So here is more of the footage. Pay close attention. We'll give you some more details after we come out of it.
Agents then get out of their car and tackle him to the ground. The encounter lasts a few seconds before Pretti is let go. At one point, a gun is seen in his waistband, but it's unclear if agents saw it. Agents then deploy tear gas and walk away. In another video, we hear from Pretti moments after agents leave.
You okay? You okay? You okay? I'm okay. I'm okay. Are we all okay? Are we all safe? We okay?
Okay. So as you heard from the anchor, after the agents pepper spray him and whatever, they walk away. That would have been a good time to arrest him, no? Like, why didn't they arrest him? Do you get what I'm saying? Like,
well, so ironically, it would have saved his life.
Yes, exactly. But right. By the way, not only saved his life, which is very important, but on top of that, it's the appropriate protocol. Like that is what they're supposed to do, but they didn't do that. Instead, they brutalized him and then they left.
Yeah, so yeah, you're not supposed to break his ribs. You're just supposed to arrest him. But look, I got one other thing out of that video. When everything is done and they leave, what's Pretti's first instinct? Go back to everybody else and go, are you okay? Are we all okay? Are we all safe? That is the instinct that he seems to have very, very consistently. He had it in the other incident. He has it as a guy who takes care of veterans, etc. Yeah, he's animated there. He's wrong to. I mean, kicking the tire, come on, guys, no big deal.
The taillight, yeah.
But the taillight, yeah, he broke it, I got it, right? So it's a minor crime, but yes, you could definitely arrest him for that. But overall, like, I still see a guy who's mainly looking to protect folks. And one other thing about it, to your point, Anna, he has a gun there. If they saw it, would they have killed him on the spot like they did the other time?
I don't know.
Right?
I mean, you can only speculate about that.
So in that case, it looks like they didn't see the gun, but that goes towards what the Second Amendment guys have been saying. Wait, if they'd seen the gun, would they have killed him on the spot at that point? Wait a minute, if we're carrying a gun at all, are we marked for execution by these guys?
I don't know.
Right? Like if you're anywhere near them, etc. And then lastly, just from that portion of the video, guys, did you see what our government officials look like, or law enforcement look like there? They look like stormtroopers.
Yeah, they do.
They get out of the car, they've got gas masks on, they've got the fatigues, and they're pointing all sorts of different things at American citizens. Is this what we wanted America to be? This ain't anywhere near what I want America to be.
So President Trump appeared to want to bring the temperature down after the Alex Pretti shooting. In fact, he went against what Stephen Miller had said about Pretti. Pretti was referred to as a terrorist and an assassin. But following the release of that video, Trump retruthed the following. So it's a post by someone else, he retruthed it. And it says, it's a retruth of someone else's retruth. This is getting a little bit comical, but anyway, video just dropped of Alex Pretti spitting on and attacking federal agents in Minneapolis on January 13th, exactly 1 week before. It wasn't 1 week, it was 11 days, which was confirmed by BBC. This wasn't some peaceful protester, he was a domestic terrorist, and Trump retruthed it. So Megyn Kelly also.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
So now, like with this, you want to talk about Israelification. Now we're down to, if you break a taillight, you should be executed? No, that's not anywhere near a domestic terrorist. You could say, hey, I don't like those actions. That's not a crazy thing to say, right? But saying because of that, he should have been executed 11 days later is nuts.
Look, I want to clarify why I don't like those actions. I don't like those actions because he's needlessly putting himself in danger by doing that.
Yes.
Like, don't do that, don't do that. These federal agents are super militarized. Like, please just, I have no problem with people protesting, obviously, okay? But please be safe and don't make dumb decisions. Anyway, Megyn Kelly weighed in and said Alex Pretti was itching for another confrontation with Border Patrol, whom he'd been stalking, harassing, and terrorizing.
Come on, Megyn, terrorizing?
Stalking?
They're in the middle of the city. What do you mean stalking?
He had been victimizing them. His felonies
Come on.
His felonies are on tape. He was reckless and it cost him his life. Find another poster boy, illegal loving leftists. Okay.
Yeah, no, we won't. No, he was not victimizing poor little Border Patrol. It's beyond absurd. By the way, how weak and soft are the right wingers making these arguments? Oh my God, you kicked out my taillight, I'm terrorized. Oh my God, you have a perfectly legal weapon that you have not at all drawn and we have already taken off of you. I'm terrorized. You yelled at me, I'm terrorized. Oh, a woman is driving 10 feet away from me at 2 miles per hour. I'm terrorized. You guys sound unbelievably weak. Okay, so you can do whatever you want with that fact, but that's what we're all hearing. We can, I don't want anything to, oh my God, I'm so scared. All right, guys, I don't think that's the win that you think it is.
And besides which, no one's opinion matters, okay? Megyn Kelly's opinion doesn't matter, Tim Pool's opinion doesn't matter, our opinion doesn't matter. You know what matters? An independent investigation of what happened on the day Alex Pretti was shot and killed by Border Patrol agents. That's the only thing that matters. And the real question is whether there will be a true independent investigation into Alex Pretti and Renee Good's killing. And that's the thing that I'm concerned about the most, because certainly when it comes to Renee Good, every sign from the federal government indicates that they just want to bury it. With Alex Pretti, they're pretending to do an investigation from my read of it, and they're blocking the state from being able to conduct an investigation. Now, both Kelly and Tim Pool have since stated that they believe that Pretti has committed suicide by cop. And when asked about the footage at a CNN town hall, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey stated that it wasn't relevant. And I agree, the video from 11 days earlier is not relevant to the investigation into his fatal shooting. Here's what Frey said, or Frey. Is it Frey or Frey? I've heard it both ways.
I've heard it both ways too.
Okay, well anyway, he says this. I think we should be talking about the circumstances that actually led to the killing and what took place and those circumstances. Totally agree. And there are other reactions, including a pretty terrifying reaction from, or an advice for the Trump administration from Stephen Miller. But before we get to that, any thoughts?
Yeah, last thing here is, so let me get this right. He spit on the car, he kicked the tire, and he kicked the taillight. So that, because he's doing that to poor law enforcement's vehicle. Now, I said earlier in the video, I think he should have been arrested for that because that's property damage. But you guys are the right wing there, Kelly, Tim Pool, et cetera, are saying, no, don't arrest him for slight property damage. He's a domestic terrorist. Okay, let's take your definition then. If we accept your definition, then you have to accept that every person that tried to break into the Capitol on January 6th was a domestic terrorist. Like that, there's no arguing that. You can't say kicking a taillight is domestic terrorism, but punching a cop in the face, beating him with a pole, pepper spraying him is not domestic terrorism? While you're trying to break into the Capitol and you're chanting, hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence? Nah, no. I'm tired of the hypocrisy and the double standards and this for that, but the other thing for that. We believe in keeping things legal. We've said it a billion times, don't throw bricks, don't start fires, don't kick the taillight, et cetera. And also if you're law enforcement, don't be such a, like, I could use other words here, but like, I'm so fragile. Okay, you kicked my taillight. 11 days later, I'm gonna put a bullet in your head. Okay, by the way, it might not be the same guys, et cetera. No, by the way, law enforcement. Be careful
in the way we talk about this, Cenk. It's really important to be accurate and not draw conclusions that don't exist yet. We don't have any evidence for it.
Hold on. Well, the conclusion is they murdered him. They put 10 bullets in him, 5 after they paused and took a lunch break, and they're like, we haven't killed him enough yet. Let's kill him again, right? So we know that happened. We don't know that it's connected to the taillight at all. But my point, Anna, is Megan and Tim or others like, you hit his taillight 11 days ago. You should be murdered as a domestic terrorist. Well, shut up then, okay? Then everybody at January 6th should have been murdered by the cops. That's an insane thing to say.
All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we'll show you that Steve Bannon, same video where he provides some advice to the Trump administration that's pretty awful and terrifying. I really hope he has been blackballed by the administration, but we'll see. We'll be right back.
All right, back on TYT here. Let's go to our super chats here. Titan of Olympus 03 says, if anything, this new video makes me wonder if it was a targeted assassination. There's no justification for murdering, and I'm just sick that I've personally spoken to people that justify both murders. So, look, guys. So first of all, no, I think targeted assassination talk is way too speculative, not even close. Because if they were really that angry at him, they could have just killed him there, right? And we don't even know that it's the same guys at all, right? Or that they remembered him. But in terms of the people who justify both murders, I know it's super tough, I know. But people are like, still, I'm trying super hard not to blame the voters, okay? Because they're they're fed, they go to their right-wing shows, and the right-wing shows tell them, oh, of course he should have been killed. He's a wild-eyed terrorist of taillights, okay? And so they get influenced by that, etc. Let's go, our correct political targets are Trump, his administration, the right-wing media that are driving that narrative. That's my take on it. Mystic Max says, Cenk, protesters didn't just show up to get gunned down in Iran. The demonstrations were peaceful and then got hijacked by Mossad-backed agitators who were armed and tried to initiate a color revolution by killing officers and destroying property.
Yes.
So I have seen similar reports. Do I know for sure like did the Iranian government start the shooting? Did the Mossad guys start the shooting? Was it only the places where the agitators were shooting, or did Iran do a crackdown in other places? Well, it's nearly impossible to know that, right? But am I aware that Mossad agents were there trying to agitate? Yes, because Israel said so. And Mike Pompeo said it, they all said it. And so that seems to confirm those reports that you're referring to, but there's a lot more to find out later, okay? And Iran has cracked down on protesters and killed protesters before. So it's not like, yes, this is in a pretense to start a war on behalf of Israel, but it's not like the Grand Ayatollah and the mullahs running Iran are angels. They've done that plenty of times before. So A. St. Cross says, thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for saying that and for contributing through Super Chat. Timmy D says, Democrats should not concede at all on this issue, in my opinion. No funding, period. ICE had a chance and chose wrong time and time again, and will continue. Timmy, while that's a position that a lot of us might agree with, that is, they have almost no chance of being able to do that in Congress. So that's my read of it, and I hope on one day that changes. But what they're asking for now is doable. And if they got the part where they kind of end the mass deportations, that would be a huge win, and I would definitely take that. Theater Goddess says, dear Schumer, people only take you seriously if you swear, if you have the conviction behind it to do something. You just look like an out of touch, weak old man failing to relate to you by trying to look edgy. Signed, most of the country. Couldn't agree more. Progressive Veteran says, I'm a veteran and still work for the federal government and had a name tag in the Army and a badge with my name now required to be worn. How dare these a-holes not identify? That is exactly right. In America, we identify law enforcement. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys, more news.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about Steve Bannon. So, following the fatal shooting of Alex Pretti in Minnesota by Border Patrol agents, the Trump administration is seeking to turn the temperature down and de-escalate to some extent. However, Steve Bannon is not happy about that and has provided his version of advice, if you can call it that, for the Trump administration. Take a look.
Have to hold the line. There can be no de-escalation at all. You don't need to bring down the temperature. Raise the temperature. Put them under pressure. They're the ones that are cracking. They're fighting. The whole nation sees it. The polling's still there. You have to have DOJ. You have to have tiger teams of prosecutors. I think they've had 12 prosecutors quit the Minneapolis office. That's fine. Nobody's forcing you to work. But surge other prosecutors, the FBI. Where are the pipe hitters? Where's Department of War? Where's an entire full whole of government approach? This is an inflection point. You blink now and you're gonna blink forever. You bend the knee now, you'll bend the knee forever. If we stand in the breach and say, screw you, we're fighting for the country, right? And I don't care how many people I got to deport, I don't care. If the families are there and they're there illegally and we want to keep them together, guess what? You're going to have to round up some 5-year-olds with their parents. But they're going home. And home ain't the United States.
Now that's his commentary and his advice after 2 American citizens were gunned down by Border Patrol agents and ICE agents, both in Minnesota in the span of a few weeks apart. So you're doing this for America? How are you going to make that argument when American citizens are getting killed?
And the overwhelming majority of the country is against it. Now, they're not doing it for America. The Steve Bannons of the world still want an authoritarian government.
100%.
He's always wanted it. He's itching for it. There is one thing that he said there that I agree with, but hold.
What?
No, you'll see. It's not any of the political points that he's making. But overall, he's basically saying this is the time to impose authoritarian rule. Turn up the temperature, ignore the will of the American people, and have a small minority set up a bunch of thugs that bully, dominate other people, and take away their rights. That's the least American thing you could do. So I couldn't have a bigger disagreement with the right wing.
And remember, he wants the Department of War involved. So what, you want American soldiers on our streets terrorizing American citizens?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, well, we know exactly who you are. Okay, great. What do you agree with again?
So the part that I agree with is that he said, if you blink now, you'll blink forever. That part I think is true, and that's not a bad thing from my point of view. In fact, it's a really good thing, but from his point of view, it's terrible. What I mean by that is, so as they're now sending in Tom Homan, and he said, yeah, we are beginning to stand out, right? And it looks like they're gonna recede. We hope. It is very unlikely that they would recede and then decide, oh, let's go do those dumb things that made the country hate us again. So once that they start to withdraw, it is a lot less likely that they will resurge, right? So we'll see, but that's why I think the protests were beautiful and worked and were amazing, and you did push back tyrannical government, and you did it peacefully. No riots, no burning down anything. All these beautiful Americans came out and protested for their neighbors, and it worked. And that's what Steve Bannon hates. He's saying, God damn it, it worked. I didn't want the American people getting what they wanted. I wanted a tiny, small, extreme right wing controlling all of the rest of you. That's why he's so upset, and I love it. So, but I think that he's probably right that no, your attempt at making this a much uglier country didn't work.
All right, well, let's move on to some other disturbing news. This time, it has to do with some reporting from friend of the show, Ken Klippenstein. Let's get into it.
It's not illegal to record.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, why are you taking my information down?
Because we have a nice little database.
Oh, good.
And now you're considered a domestic terrorist. So
we're videotaping you? Are you crazy?
Well, now we have confirmation on that video, which we covered last week, indicating that, yeah, the federal government is in fact keeping watch lists of American citizens. How do we know that? Well, thanks to new reporting from a friend of the show, Ken Klippenstein, who reveals that these databases are in fact real. How do we know that? Well, he actually spoke to people who would know about their existence, and we're gonna give you their statements in just a minute. But before we do, Cenk, your 2 cents.
Yeah, so watch a full interview I did with Ken Klippenstein about this just a couple of days ago when you get a chance. If you're a member, very easy to do that, hit the join button below. But here, what we're most worried about is taking this idea that comes honestly from foreign governments, that you monitor and surveil the people you're occupying, and you set up all sorts of traps for them so that you could pretend to be the victims and take away their rights. So that's what you have to look out for. And now Anna's gonna give you the whole story.
I mean, our government seems to be learning from the best when it comes to this type of abuse of power, the Israelis. So there are apparently over a dozen of these watch lists, by the way. So officially, the federal government maintains 3 of those watch lists. One is a list of over 1 million international terrorists. One is a list of over 10,000 domestic terrorists, and I, put that in air quotes because, like, what are the standards for that? How do you determine whether or not someone is a domestic terrorist? The last one is a list of transnational criminals. Now, there are also far more unofficial watch lists. So in fact, according to an anonymous DHS attorney, these watch lists are so sprawling that not even the feds can comprehend them. So here's what the individual said, quote, "We came out of 9/11 with the notion that we would have a single terrorist watch list to eliminate confusion, duplication, and avoid bad communications. But ever since January 6th, not only have we expanded exponentially into purely domestic watch listing, but we have also created a highly secretive and compartmented superstructure that few even understand," which honestly might be a good thing. But notice when these unofficial watch lists started to spring up after January 6th. So if you happen to be on the right and you think they're just tracking the lefties, nothing to worry about here. No, they're looking at you too. They're looking at you too, all of us. If you think that rights being violated for one political group will mean that only that political group is gonna have to deal with those abuses and power, just know it will come to you soon if it hasn't already. So anyway, an anonymous Border Patrol agent told Ken Klippenstein that when they enter data into one such database, they have like no idea what happens to that information after. So here are some of the names of these databases. Hummingbird, sounds pleasant, doesn't it? Reaper, not so pleasant, and Sparta. So
it actually reminds me of Hunger Games.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, so guys, to Anna's point, they started this, here we go again with the uniparty, started under Biden, going into Trump. Trump takes it to a whole nother level. And meanwhile, back under Biden, Democrats were for it. Now Democrats are against it. Right wing was against it, now they're for it. And meanwhile, neither side is getting that you're not among the elites. You're not among the powerful.
100%.
You're among the occupied. So we showed a clip earlier in the show just a minute ago with Steve Bannon. And Steve Bannon's cheering on these abuses. You think Steve Bannon's on your side? You think that, we're just gonna occupy the left, but we're not gonna do anything to the right wing? They don't even know who's in the right wing, and now they're shooting these guys who are just carrying a gun, legally carrying a gun. Who do you think's in that category? You think the powerful are gonna be like, oh no, it's okay. We'll just take money from the left, but we'll make the right wing rich? No, they don't care about you at all. They're gonna occupy all of us.
So let me tell you about the purpose of these watch lists, according to the sources who spoke to Ken. So they process tips, situation reports, and collected photographs and videos submitted by both the public and from agents in the field. They create a common operating picture in places like Minneapolis. They allow task forces to target individuals for surveillance and arrest, which honestly makes me wonder about the Alex Pretti case, because we now have a video from 11 days prior to him getting shot and killed by Border Patrol agents. And I wanna know whether or not the interaction he had with the immigration enforcement agents earlier, 11 days earlier, have any connection to the individuals who opened fire 11 days later. Right? Especially since we know these watch lists exist and they're keeping an eye on people. Further, these watch lists create the capacity for intelligence people to link individuals together through geographic proximity, or what is labeled call chaining, by processing telephone numbers, emails, and other contact information. Man, I really do long for the days when we found out that the NSA was indiscriminately spying on Americans and people were outraged by it. Now, I mean, it seems like the surveillance state is even more nefarious, and most people don't seem to care. They are being used to track protesters, both anti-ICE and pro-Palestinian protesters, Antifa, and who they determine to be domestic terrorists. But again, we don't know how they make that delineation.
So look, there's two telling signs here that this is driven by our law enforcement, our national security apparatus, constantly working with the IDF and learning the lessons from the IDF on how to occupy people. So in their case, the Israelis occupy the Palestinians, a different group. In our case, they're looking to occupy us, the American people. So one is this call chaining that they're talking about. That reminds me of the Where's Daddy program that Israel ran. By the way, it might be that Palantir ran both that and this. Well, I'm not entirely sure about that, but similar companies for sure And so what that program was let's find some people that we think were in Hamas, but then let's figure out who they called. Could be their barber, it could be the local grocer, it doesn't matter. Let's find out who they called, and then who they called, that's a call chain, and then murder them, in the case of Israel, okay? And by the way, they call it Where's Daddy, because they wait for the rando who got called by the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, right?
To go home to his family.
And when he goes home, they bomb the home to make sure they murder his children and his wife with him.
Because if the IDF isn't killing children, I mean, what good do they do, right? What's their purpose? I mean, that's their whole purpose. And I'm not even kidding when you consider the volume of dead bodies that are children in Gaza as we speak.
So this second part of it is, all of a sudden, we went from anti-ICE and hey, right wing, left wing, Trump administration, Biden administration, to anyone who's pro-Palestinian. Why is that in there? Because this isn't coming from us. This is coming from Israel. So they're saying, if anyone is in favor of us not murdering the Palestinians, round them up, okay? And by the way, these days, who's not in favor of giving Israel more money for their genocide? Not just the left wing, but also the right wing and also the independents. So they're coming for all of us. They're coming for our freedoms. And Ken also reported about not getting warrants. All of our constitutional rights are being eroded, and at the end of the day, we'll just be like one giant cow for Israel to milk. And if anyone protests, you send out the stormtroopers and you find out, oh, who did they call and who did they call and who did they call? Round up all the Americans that oppose Israel.
You guys think Larry Ellison, the single largest donor to the IDF, was giddy about surveilling all of us here in the United States because he cares about this country being safe, or could it be for other purposes? Like Larry Ellison is a nefarious, evil person, okay? And we shouldn't want to live in a surveillance state where a guy whose true loyalties lie with Israel basically keeps tabs on every single American. Come on.
And Larry Ellison, that's not an exaggeration. Larry Ellison gave $60 million to the IDF in the middle of the genocide as charity. And he said on tape, we need to track everyone, know exactly where they're going and not. So he's 100% in favor of the surveillance state, and obviously Palantir is. And so this reign of terror is coming in our direction. Last thing on the Palestine-Israel thing. Why do we care if there's pro-Palestinian protesters? Do we care if there's pro-Portuguese protesters or anti-Portuguese or Bulgarian or not? By the way, pro-Israeli, I don't care if you're a pro-Israeli protester. I'm not looking to track you or take away your rights.
I mean, I'll judge you, but
that's a different thing, right? Yeah. But why is our government tracking whether you're pro or anti a different government?
Can I answer the question?
Yes.
Because our government is controlled by Israel, Canary Mission. Our government is controlled by Israel, and it's obvious. You can go ahead and post about me saying that.
Yeah.
Because I say it openly, because it's true.
94% of Congress gets legalized bribes from the Israeli lobby.
That's true.
They literally work for Israel, not for you.
Where do you get your money from, bitches?
Well, we know it's the same people, right? The same people who, in the case of Stop Anti-Semitism, flew, their funders are the guys who took the traitor Jonathan Pollard and flew him out in a private jet to Israel. Congratulations, way to go, champ, way to totally betray America like we want you to do and serve Israel instead. Now they're taking that Jonathan Pollard idea and making the entire US government work for Israel. Making the entire US government Jonathan Pollard.
Well, we're not quite done with Israel. When we come back for the second hour of the show, we'll talk a little bit about what the IDF is finally willing to concede when it comes to the genocide they've carried out in Gaza and continue to carry out. And we will also talk about the likelihood of US strikes on Iran. It appears to be imminent. We'll see that and more coming up. Don't miss it.
The most popular online news show. Favorite news platform by far. Oh, it's not even close.
Been on YouTube for 20 years. The Young Turks.
The Young Turks. TYT probably needs no introduction. A true lefty, Cenk Uygur. Cenk Uygur.
Cenk, so great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you, David.
Fan of your work for a long time, man.
Anna Kasparian is one of the most followed and influential progressive women online.
I love Anna.
Your presence has been essential for me to really grow.
Do all of you know the Young Turks? This is why what Young Turks are doing is so important.
I've watched you for many years. You are insightful. I thank you for that.
I was going to introduce myself, but it sounds like you guys might know it.
Ring the bell on YouTube today. You know what it does? It actually rings the bell at my house. It's super annoying, but if you do it, it just keeps on ringing. Oh, plus you can find out when the show is live and whenever we have new clips. Ring the bell. Oh no, not again.
How would I look walking a dog on the White House lawn? Would that be?
You know how much it costs you to start an account on tyt.com? Nothing. It's free. So you just go and register in about 2.5 seconds. Then you can chat with us during the show. We read those comments the most often. You chat with each other. Tons of people have become friends there. We're super interactive. We do a lot of polls for our paying members. We sometimes do polls that drive the direction of the show. So that's amazing. There's no other show that's this interactive. And our home base for that is tyt.com. Come join us right now.
When you were growing up, what did you want to be?
I think I was starting to think I don't want to do one thing, and I did live up to that.
Well, mission accomplished then, because Dave was a geologist.
Yeah.
And now he's, helped found the Young Turks. Even within TYT, you've done a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So if you want to do different things, you nailed it. All right, last story to end on is a Dave story. Whenever there was something like obvious, glaring, he would go up and ask them about it. Like, it'd be like a giant church, right? And somebody's standing in front of it. Your usual Dave go, pull up right in front of him. You're like, hey, do you know where there's a church around here? And they're like, right here. It's right here.
Practical jokes. Spice up life a little.
We've been around for about 20 years and we have about 20 billion views. Am I proud of that? Hell yeah, I am. We put out 20 billion messages in a bottle. Have we helped to move now 2 generations, millennials and Gen Z, to become progressive? Yes, those numbers are real. We moved generations. Were we the only ones? Of course not. But we have been the largest online news show for now decades. Cool news, shoptyt.com now has books. There's a whole bunch of books there. You're gonna be shocked to find out that they're largely progressive. Of course! Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People, is there. It's a fantastic story from Jesse Jackson to Bernie Sanders to AOC that explains the progressive movement probably better than any book I've ever read. Speaking of awesome books, my dad's got a book out called The Original Young Turk, where he goes from the poorest olive farmer you ever met in your life to living the American dream.
USA, USA, USA.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Look, this is the time when we save you guys a little bit of money. TYT.com/switch, that's to get to Noble Mobile. Cell phone service, if you're paying more than $50 a month, there's just no need to, you're gonna save money here. I had tons of trouble with my Wi-Fi this month, and I still got $8 back. But most of the time we're on Wi-Fi, you're gonna get a lot more back because they give you money back. And 50 is the most you could pay, but I normally pay in the 30s. So please do yourself a favor, nothing in your phone changes. It's basically T-Mobile service. My service hasn't changed at all. My number hasn't changed. My phone hasn't changed. TYT.com/switch. The only thing that's going to change is you're going to save a lot of money. And you could just try it. And if it doesn't work, you can go back and AT&T or Verizon will give you more money to go back. So there's no losing here. TYT.com/switch. All right, Anna.
All right, let's talk about death in Gaza.
Let me make that very clear right now. What happened in Gaza is not a genocide.
So you know better than genocide scholars?
Oh, I'm sorry. Everyone's a genocide scholar. In light of everyone being a genocide scholar, I have friends that are literal genocide scholars.
We're close to now a death toll of 69,000 people slaughtered in Gaza.
And that's 0.97 people per building.
I really don't want to yell, but you keep interrupting, and it makes it difficult for me to make my point when you're interrupting me. So please stop doing that. I don't want to yell. Well, Zionist propagandist Emily Austin refused to accept the massive number of people Israel slaughtered in Gaza when we had our debate back in October. And I am happy to report that, maybe, just maybe, she will accept reality now that her precious IDF has confirmed the death toll determined by the Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza.
So before we give you all the facts about this, I want you to think about two things. First of all, I guess now IDF is Hamas. Now, why do I say that? Because when I've debated Israel 100 times on all these different shows, I was told that if you quote the Hamas numbers, you are Hamas. So apparently, interesting turn of events there. Secondly, towards the end of the story, I'm going to tell you about Operation Consequences. So we're launching that now, and what that means is for politicians who keep giving our money to a genocidal government that is now admitted that they've murdered over 71,000 people, we're gonna vote them out, and there's gonna be political consequences. So we're gonna talk about that a little bit later, but first let's tell you about the heart of the story.
So this is a report by an Israeli publication, Haaretz. We talk about it all the time. I know it's pronounced Haaretz. I'm gonna pronounce it like an American would. But nonetheless, they note that the IDF has finally accepted the Gaza Health Ministry's estimate that approximately 70,000 Palestinians have been killed since October 2023. Now, of course, the death toll is actually much higher than that. I'll explain why in just a minute. But looking at the breakdown of the data from the health ministry as of January 26, let's take a look. You'll see that they note that 71,660 people have been killed. At least 171,419 Palestinians have been injured, many with life-altering wounds. That's 1 out of every 14 people in Gaza, and I don't think that's an accident. And since the ceasefire, 486 Palestinians have been killed. And since the ceasefire, another 1,341 Palestinians have been injured. Now, it's important to note that the number of those killed does not include missing individuals who are still trapped under the rubble. The National Committee for Missing Persons estimate that the number is around 10,000 people who are trapped under the rubble. It could be higher. There are other things to keep in mind as well, including the ministry's tally does not include other individuals. Like for instance, it includes only those killed directly by Israeli military fire in its tracking. They do not count the people who died of starvation, for instance, because of Israel's blockade and unwillingness to allow humanitarian aid into the Strip. They also don't include people who died as a result of diseases that were exacerbated or spread as a result of the war.
Like dysentery that spreads in situations like this. They're also not counting the people the babies who died in the incubators when they pulled the plugs on them. And all the people who were sick in the hospitals that once they bombed the hospitals or cut the electricity, died in the hospitals. So why do you think they're accepting this number? That's very unusual, right? Normally, this Israeli government lies about 100% of the time. So the reason they're accepting this number is because the real number is much, much higher.
You took my point away. You took my point away. That was the point I was gonna make, Cenk.
Well, we agree.
Damn it. Okay. No, I do think the number is much higher. Now, the records published by the Gaza Ministry of Health identify over 90% of the bodies by name and identification numbers, but do not distinguish between militants and civilians. But the Substack Untangling Threads released a really fascinating analysis that does jive with the IDF's own internal data, by the way, which shows that the majority of people who have been killed are in fact civilians. So this is an analysis in October of last year that argued that the real number as of October of 2025, of course, was closer to 130,000 people killed. And this is when you take into consideration, the undercount rate for violent deaths, which is what the GHS looks at specifically, and the estimate of indirect deaths. So that's the starvation and disease that was created by Israel as a result of their operations there. And remember, the IDF's own data indicates that they were only able to identify, out of everyone they killed, they were only able to name and identify, what was it? So 83% of people that they killed, they couldn't identify them as combatants. The rest, they were able to name and identify as combatants, meaning that 83% of people that they killed, based on their own data, were not combatants.
Yeah, 83% is the worst ratio of any terrorist group in the world. It's worse than Hamas, worse than Al Qaeda. So we are funding a terrorist organization. There's no question about it. And today the EU goes out there and is talking about, oh, we're now going to call the Iranian Revolutionary Guard terrorists. Fine, they might meet some definition of terrorism. I'm not worried about that. But basically, that's a prelude to we now have to invade Iran for Israel. Why?
Because we care about protesters.
No, because Israel's an obviously much bigger terrorist entity than the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Just the sheer numbers are not close, let alone the number of kids that they murdered, let alone the number of aid workers, the reporters, etc. So, but our government tells us, don't believe your lying eyes. You see Gaza is all rubble, right? And now they're pulling out dead bodies one by one from the rubble. And our media tells us, no, Israel is the victim. And the Palestinians are super powerful terrorists that are terrorizing the poor little Israelis. I mean, it's mass lies over and over again, which then now we come to the point of the Israel first guys that we debate. By the way, everyone who likes Israel is not Israel first. They could say, hey, I like Israel, I have some affinity to it, etc. But I'm not obsessed with it. I think there are other issues. I'm not defending everything they've done. So I'm not talking about those guys. I'm talking about Israel first. So those are the guys that are the pundits, the ones you see on TV. They are all liars. 100% of them are liars, and they lie about almost every single issue. So they all lied about these numbers in mass. Oh, Hamas, you're all terrorists. Oh, you love terrorists for quoting these numbers. So what happened now? Are they all going to apologize? Are they all going to say, oh yes, we were giant liars and we were sent on Piers Morgan and every other show to lie on behalf of Israel, and now we have our new lies after this one, okay? So they have no credibility, nothing. If you see someone defending Israel on TV, they're doing propaganda for Israel. Their mission, which they were given by the government of Israel, is to deceive you. And why did they murder more journalists than all other conflicts combined in the world? Because they don't want you to see that the Palestinians are obviously the victims and the Israelis are obviously the oppressors, committing far worse terrorism than any terrorist organization in the world. Those are empirical, verifiable facts. If it hurts your feelings that Israel is this terrorist entity, take it up with Israel, not the journalists that they murdered to hide that fact. So, but I'm glad the IDF has now agreed to one thing that is relatively true. So congratulations, Israel. Your whole government, they've said one true thing in the last 2-3 years, okay? And again, it's a massive undercount. That's why they're agreeing to it now. And I guarantee you, you can quote me on this and you'll see it with your own eyes. Later, when the count goes up much higher because of the starvation and mainly the people they're pulling out of the rubble, they'll say, before we said it was 71,000 and now they're saying it's 90,000 or 110,000. They're just inflating their numbers. And they're doing that that's what this is about, for future propaganda.
100%, I totally agree with you. So you know what? Allow the journalists into the Gaza Strip so they can do reporting on the ground. But they're blocked, right? And all the journalists that were in Gaza were slaughtered by the IDF. I wonder why. Gee, I wonder why. Final thing I'll read real quick, because I just got to read Piers Morgan's post on X about this. He says, for over 2 years, most of my pro-Israel guests have angrily denied the Gaza Health Ministry's casualty numbers and said they were widely exaggerated. Now the IDF has accepted they're accurate. Piers, I appreciate you posting that. But moving forward, can you be a little more skeptical of the Israeli side? Just a little more skeptical of the Israeli side.
They're always lying. It's so obvious. Okay, but you know what, by the way, I also, Piers, next time I'm on with some Israel First goon, I'm demanding an apology. They lied, and I'd like them to apologize to the people that they lied to and pretended that we were supporting terrorism. Or they have to admit that the IDF is supporting terrorism.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, all right, last thing, guys. I promise you Operation Consequences. I'm tired of all of our politicians giving our money to Israel, as Israel itself now willy-nilly goes, yeah, we killed 71,000 people. Yeah, 83% of them were civilians. Yeah, so what? So give me more of your money. Okay, I want a new memorandum of understanding for 10 or 20 years. I want $100 billion. Trump just gave me 12 billion, it's not enough. Biden gave me 21 billion, it's not enough. I want more, I want more. Now there's gotta be consequences. Now we're nonviolent, peaceful always. We're nonpartisan on this issue, the whole country agrees. So what are the consequences? Easy, political consequences. That's what should be in a democracy. So it's called OperationConsequences.com. And what all we're asking you to do is sign a pledge on two things. One is, if one of our so-called representatives in Congress takes money from AIPAC or the Israeli lobby, make a pledge to never vote for them, because they're literally saying, I'm not your representative, I'm Israel's representative. And the second pledge is, if these guys going forward, because in the past, then you'd have to eliminate all of Congress. But going forward, if you give Israel another $1, we're never gonna vote for you. If you want to cry about it, I don't care. Go ahead and cry. Oh, but I wanted to take your money, even though we're 38 trillion in debt. I wanted to take your money, by the way, borrowed from China and make you pay interest the rest of your life, and hand it over to Israel because they're committing a genocide. And I love genocides as long as Israel's doing it. So I'm gonna force you to pay for it. Okay, great. Now there's going to be political consequences. You give one more $1 of ours to Israel, and we're gonna vote you out. And guys, it's so simple. Because the way that they trick you is, oh, are you gonna vote for a Republican if you're a Democrat? Ha, you can't vote for them. If you're a Republican, you're gonna vote for a Democrat? Ha, no. That's what primaries are for. So Republicans go into your Republican primaries and vote against anyone who says, I am representing Israel and not you. Democrats do likewise, go into your primaries and vote against any Democrat. And yes, that includes 94% of Congress now. It doesn't have to include 94% of Congress later. And in fact, at OperationConsequences.com, if you scroll down, you'll see that there's a list of legislators now, Congress people, who now do not take money from the Israeli lobby. This is a new phenomenon, because what happened? We caught them. And now when you shine a spotlight on them and go, oh, look at all the money you took from a foreign government, and look at all our money you gave to that foreign government. Oh, all of a sudden they're a little embarrassed. They got caught with their hand in the genocide jar. So now there's gonna be consequences. Vote out all the bums. And by the way, again, almost all the incumbents, not all of them, but almost all of them, are totally serve Israel, don't care about you at all, and the job of establishment media is to trick you. Honestly, for a lot of online media too. Oh, vote for the Democrat, vote for the Republican, they're the good guys, they're the good guys. That's just, everything about that is fraudulent. They both support Israel at the end. No, OperationConsequences.com, not AnotherDollar.com. They both go to the same place. We're tired of it. We're doing the most peaceful American nonviolent protest you could possibly do. So go out there and make sure that we get representatives of us, the American people, and not the Israeli people, and stop giving our money to these genocidal maniacs.
Speaking of the genocidal maniacs, they might succeed in goading us into a war with Iran. We've got an update on that and more when we return.
right, I'm gonna read some of these blind. Let's go to Super Chat. Dune Mirage, a fist protector, says, if self-hating Israelis kick off trends that mock dead babies and kids from Palestine, and Israeli Nazis post videos of themselves robbing banks while looking dumb in bras and pajamas, let's see TikTok try to handle that. Well, they just ban all of it, but it's okay, we'll move to somewhere else. And they're not gonna be able to ban all the social media platforms. Their new rules will blow up in their face with tons of proof and examples. Haaretz and big media won't cover real Palestine news anymore, just a stupid mockery these settlers do on stolen land. So look, guys, you could disagree with his language, but what he's referring to is real, and the settlers abuse the Palestinians and kill them and rob them and take their land every day. The settlers are indisputably fascist. They have gangs of young terrorists that go and terrorize the innocent Palestinian civilians in the West Bank, and we fund all of it. Oh, great job on the terrorism, settlers. Here's more money, here's billions of dollars. Oh no, don't worry, the Americans don't need it. Stupid Americans, give your money to Israel. We're gonna terrorize those Palestinian civilians. And then he says, keep in mind, it's not only TikTok, but also on Instagram, Facebook, and obviously X is filled with Muslim propagandists already, anti-Muslim propagandists already displaying the war crime, such as recently Ben Gvir posting group of Sheeny demolition of grave Izzadin al-Qassan can't be any more satanic. Yeah, there's anti-Muslim propaganda all over social media, and all the platforms love it. When you talk about anti-Semitism, no, I can root it all out. Anti-Semitism, then they're like, kill all the Muslims are the worst, kill their babies, etc. They're like, bravo, good job, nice engagement. No one cares, no one cares. All their talk of bigotry is nothing but lies. All of it, they don't care about bigotry. They only use it as a gimmick to protect Israel. Anyway.
Yeah, so about the whole social media thing and how, the Zionists are basically taking control of all TikTok. It looks like X has some issues lately as well. There is a platform known as Upscrolled, and it is owned, or at least co-owned by a Palestinian, and I signed up for it because I would like to speak my mind without fear of a Zionist takeover that censors me. Yeah. So if you're interested, sign up for it. I'm not getting paid by them or anything. I just want a platform that's free and open.
Yeah. F the Israeli censors trying to censor America. Make it make sense. As Cenk, you had me convinced he was a saint, referring to Pretti, but he wasn't. He should have been in jail. Police failed. He should have been arrested, not shot the next day, just like Babbitt should have been arrested. Yeah. But okay, brother, I hear you. Okay, so you're saying he's not a saint because you saw him in that video. Okay, first of all, even in that video, he's looking to protect others after he's done raging, right? But you've also seen me rage. So does that mean it's okay? Well, hey, he was really angry on that day. He was really angry. That's not and I know you're saying it's not a reason to kill him, okay? But it's so easy for us to go, he's the other, so it's okay. It's not okay. Tommy Gunn says, quote, we need outside agitators who can be relied on to do the wrong thing at the right time, DJ Miro. And that is from Andor, and that is a great quote, and that's exactly what they're looking for. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna, more news.
Well, we've got an update on Iran. Let's get right to it.
When Donald Trump promises you something, he will deliver. To the Iranian people, President Trump has your back. Help will be on the way. I'm not going to say any more.
We said, protest, we're coming to the rescue. Well, that's what we Americans do when we can. And the president, I believe in all my heart, is going to keep his word because that's what he does.
There's nothing like Lindsey Graham and Mark Levin to make you lose your appetite. Perhaps they are a better diet plan than using Ozempic. But nonetheless, unfortunately, Levin and Graham are very likely correct about the US pursuing a regime change war in Iran, something that they've been egging on for months, but honestly, for literally years. So talks with Iranian leaders have all but halted, and Trump is once again considering strikes against Iran. Now, before I give you the details on that, Cenk, your 2 cents.
Yeah, they're saying, oh my God, Iran is killing protesters in the streets. That's our job. Wait a minute. So those are the same guys saying that ICE should kill Americans in the street, but if Iran kills protesters in the street, we need to invade them on behalf of Israel. Look, we'll talk about the Iranian government culpability, etc. But this has nothing to do with their feelings about protesters in the streets. And oh my God, Israel wants to protect Muslim protesters so badly. No, they want to invade Iran, install a dictator that serves Israel. That's what all of this is about. We're gonna show it to you right now.
And very likely get those protesters killed, by the way. So anyway, the Trump administration is hosting senior defense and intelligence officials from Israel and Saudi Arabia this week for talks about possible strikes on Iran. According to US officials who spoke to Axios, the Israelis came to DC because they practically live here and occupy our government, but nonetheless, that was my addition to this excerpt. The Israelis came to DC to share intelligence on possible targets inside Iran. Israeli military intelligence chief General Shlomi Binder held meetings with senior officials at the Pentagon, the CIA, and the White House on Tuesday and Wednesday. 2 US officials said, can we please get them the F out of our government? Can we do that? Can we think about that maybe? Get them the F out of our government?
Yeah, look, he's literally, an Israeli general is literally coming to our government and say, here's your orders on who to bomb. You're to bomb here, you're to bomb there, you're to bomb there. Okay, have you learned it, you stupid Americans? You work for Shlomi from now on, you understand? And our government goes, yes, sir, of course, sir. And then they send out their dogs, the Israel cucks.
Yep.
Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, Mark Levin, all these guys. Oh, we have to invade Iran for Israel. No, we don't. They're looking to rob us blind and fight this war for Israel.
I have to correct you. No, they don't say we have to bomb Iran for Israel because they know that most Americans at this point can't stand Israel, which is why they lie and say we got to save those protesters. So
look, I just got to say, if you think that the Israel First crowd cares about innocent Muslims protesting for democracy, which is exactly what the Palestinians are doing, because the Israelis have kept them enslaved for 58 years and they're dying for freedom, and the Israelis murder them on a regular basis. You think those guys care about Muslims in Iran protesting for democracy? You're the biggest sucker in the world. They don't care about those people at all. They're using them as a gimmick to do more death and destruction and oppression in the Middle East.
So as for possible targets within Iran, options Trump is now considering include US military airstrikes aimed at Iran's leaders and the security officials believed to be responsible for the killings of protesters, as well as strikes on Iranian nuclear sites and government institutions, the sources familiar with the matter said. So number one, those responsible for the killings of protesters. So Mossad agents, is that what Trump's gonna do? He's gonna kill Mossad agents. Also, I thought the nuclear sites had been completely obliterated. Where are you at, Jillian Michaels? Where are you at? You gonna apologize to me? Anyway, let me continue. Also, the Saudis, on the other hand, are apparently concerned about a potential regional war and are trying to help broker a diplomatic solution. I don't really know if I believe that, but Saudi Defense Minister Prince Khalid bin Salman is expected to have meetings at the Pentagon, the State Department, and the White House with people like Marco Rubio and Steve Witkoff, which inspires absolutely no confidence. And look, the reason why I don't trust the Saudis is because they pretend like, we have issues with Israel, but behind the scenes, they're on their knees, pleasuring the Israelis. Now, White House officials say that Trump still hasn't made a final decision, but as we know, he has escalated his rhetoric as of late. He threatened Iran last week on Wednesday, or actually no, this week on Wednesday, with strikes that will be far worse than last time. And the military buildup in the region will also be completed in the next few days, which includes the arrival of the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group. Trump also claims that he wants to make a deal with Iran as it pertains to their nuclear program, or at least preventing them from having a nuclear program. But it does appear that these negotiations have stalled. I mean, who would trust Trump at this point? I certainly wouldn't if I were the Iranians. And now Trump isn't even agreeing to meet with Iranian officials unless they agree to a permanent end to uranium enrichment, new curbs on Iran's ballistic missile program, to which if I were in the Iranian government, I would just double middle finger to that, and halting all support for Iranian proxies in the region. The biggest sticking point, sources said, has been the US demand that Iran agree to put limits on the range of its ballistic missiles, an acute concern for Israel. So why the hell do we care? That's it, end of story. Why do we Americans care? Fight your own battles, Israel. Fight your own damn battles.
If you want to attack all your neighbors and you want to take more Palestinian land and the areas inflamed, that's kind of your problem. You're the one who started the problem. But Israel never wants to pay its own bills. They have universal health care, they have paid family leave, they have a ton of things we don't have. They're one of the top economies in the world, but they're like, no, America owes Israel. You owe us a genocide. You owe us a war with Iran. You owe us for everything. We don't owe you, you know what. Okay, back to the Saudis. The Saudis are Sunnis. They had a proxy war with Iran in Yemen. Iran is Shia. Those are the two main branches opposed to each other in Islam, okay? So the Saudis don't like the Iranians at all. These days they're a little bit worried about instability in the Middle East. The UAE just works for Israel.
Yep.
Saudis 80% work for Israel, and they have a common enemy in Iran. So the Saudis might be totally faking it and actually in favor of this war, but I don't know that. In the past, they've been dead set against Iran, and like I said, literally did a proxy war with them in Yemen. So I'm not trusting the Saudis.
Agreed.
And then, I mean, look at what they're doing here. They're throwing the kitchen sink at it, just like they did with Iraq, right? Oh, we're worried about the protesters in the street because we care about democracy so much. Okay, all right, then give democracy to the West Bank and Gaza Strip. Never! Oh, I thought you cared about democracy. It's such an obvious lie. And then they're like, oh, we're worried about the nukes, just like for Iraq. Oh, they did 9/11. No, they didn't. Oh, it was weapons of mass destruction. Oh, we're gonna spread democracy. So when you see the same exact lies, understand that the same liars are spreading them. And by the way, of course, here we go again. Donald Trump promised to be anti-war. Now he's meeting about how he's gonna do war on behalf of other countries. So why? Money, money. They made it rain on Trump's orange head. And he's like, oh, the Adelsons, I love them. They give me $330 million. And oh my God, and there's more bribes coming. And we're gonna build towers and they're gonna name them Trump Towers. And oh yeah, we'll build them on the graves of Palestinian children. It's gonna be great. So look, guys, there's gotta be consequences. If there aren't political consequences in America, our politicians will always betray us. Why? Because the whole system's built on money. Because of money in politics, the Israelis can bribe Biden, which they most definitely did, his #1 donor. But people don't know this because mainstream media literally actively hides these facts to protect their beloved Israel. #1 career donor for Joe Biden was Israel. #1 career donor for Donald Trump is Israel. #1 career donor for Mike Johnson and Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are all Israel. And Mitch McConnell, Israel. It's always Israel. And so what do? They say, and then they get the media to cover it up. Oh, no. You're an anti-Semite if you don't, you owe Israel, you owe them. And if you don't give up all your money, then you're an anti-Semite and we're gonna get you fired from your job and we're gonna ruin your life. That's what thugs do. So there needs to be consequences. OperationConsequences.com, we launched that. All it is if they take money from the Israeli lobby or they give our money to Israel, vote them out. Vote them out in your primaries. Republicans go to your own primaries. Democrats go to your own primaries. Vote them all out. OperationConsequences.com. If there are not political consequences, these politicians will universally support Israel because they get bribed to do so. And they will always screw us over. Do we have a democracy or don't we? No one here in America wants to go to war in Iran for Israel. No one. If they make us do this war, which they almost certainly will, you should vote on every bum that says, oh, we need to give more money to Israel. You need to work harder. You need to work a second shift because we got to send your money to Israel to commit more war crimes. So not another dollar to Israel. Enough. So it's obvious that our politicians want to have this country be occupied just like the Palestinians are occupied, and they want to send as much of our money as humanly possible to Israel so they can expand their empire in the Middle East and grab more land from innocent neighbors that they are mauling and killing with our money. OperationConsequences.com, it'll be in the link below.
All right, when we come back, maybe we'll get into the various figures who are trying to goad Trump into war. And one thing I really want to discuss is what Ghislaine Maxwell has claimed in regard to Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirators. We'll be right back.
Let's go to members on TYT.com. TO1790 says, doesn't Saudi Arabia kill their protesters? So that's such a great point, because look at how selectively both our politicians and our media working hand in hand go, don't look there, don't look there. The Saudis give us money, we give them money, money, right? Israel, money. Okay, UAE, money. Don't look there, they're perfectly innocent, they're all the victims. Iran, well, they're not bribing us. Iran, they're the real enemy. Everyone in mainstream media is a liar. That doesn't give you that context. That doesn't give you any context. And they almost all call people who do give you the truth anti-Semites because they work for Israel. Should prove that you don't work for Israel. Prove it. Be honest about it. No, never. Just smear anyone who isn't pro-Israel. You didn't notice that we're rounding up protesters here in America and taking away their First Amendment rights on behalf of beloved Israel? No, instead you reported the opposite. Terrible anti-Semitic protesters should have their rights taken. How dare they oppose Israel? Okay? Yeah. They're all, God damn it, turn off your TV, smash your TV to pieces if you still have cable. Because their job is to lie to you in mass to get you to not notice, not just Israel, but the entire donor class has completely bought our government. And mainstream media loves it. They love it. And they say, don't talk about the donors. Don't talk about the donors. Yeah, you're all frauds. None of you are journalists. Boop writes in, nice, Anna, I'm continuously proud of you. I feel like I knew about a rock band before everyone else knew who they were. Your technique gets sharper and sharper, inspiring.
Wait, what?
So that was just a nice comment about one of the stories that you did today. So
thank you.
Yeah. So all right, I'm moving on. Okay, that's nice though. Dirge says we are rapidly approaching an assault on the king's men is no different than an assault on the king. So that's a nice historical reference, and yeah, we are approaching that for sure. On Twitch, Dev0094 says, we have our own little database. It's pretty scary to hear from Israel agent. It confirms what we already knew. Israel's clever. I like that. I might borrow that from you. On Twitch, just another dragon says, never could imagine a world through which Tom Homan is the least extreme person in the room for the right. And then folks trying to be nice to me. I appreciate you guys. Caroline says, let's give Handsome Jenk some love. Caramel Diva says, Jenk looks very handsome as usual. You guys are beautiful, I appreciate you. The only Mel says, Anna's so beautiful. Okay, thank you. Okay, all right, you get 1 out of 2 ain't bad, but I appreciate you guys, I really do. Carol Gosh says, the right-wing media is having a field day with this about the second Pretti video where he kicks the taillight. This is their big gotcha moment. Oh, he's slightly mean in this case. A good thing he was killed. All right, D. Mitchell says Bannon should volunteer his time and be in the front line if he's that excited. And by the way, that also goes true for the war with Iran. Anyone who wants to go to war with Iran, I invite you to the front line. Otherwise, a tall glass of shut up juice. Hi Wade 2026 says, I'm from Minnesota. Fry is pronounced like French fry.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate it. I really do.
Yes. Michael Cotavelli on Super Chat. Can you guys have a segment about Palantir and their new platform they're deploying called Elite? They're building Minority Report type tech. They can predict crime. Isn't this all a violation of our civil liberties? Of course it is, but Palantir also bribes all of our politicians, and they also work for Palantir. TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. And Potheon, thank you for donating through TYT.com. I really appreciate it. It makes a big difference to us. And we are getting squeezed by our enemies. So, and you can guess who that might be. So thank you for that. We can't appreciate it more. All right, Anna, what's next?
Well, we've got an update on Ghislaine Maxwell. Let's get into it.
To Ghislaine Maxwell's claim about 25 men with secret settlements, 4 named co-conspirators, that's from the first attempted prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein that ended up in a non-prosecution agreement. All of those names, everything about that is in the Epstein files that have not yet been released according to the law that you got passed.
Lawrence, the biggest lie in the Epstein cover-up is that Epstein and Maxwell were the only 2 people who abused and raped 1,200 plus survivors.
Now, we would certainly have more information about the other co-conspirators if the Trump administration actually released the Epstein files, which they are required to do by law since Congress has passed legislation requiring them to do it. But nonetheless, Ghislaine Maxwell has claimed in court that 25 associates of Jeffrey Epstein's reached secret settlements to avoid ever getting prosecuted. Cenk, your thoughts?
Yeah, so the idea that our government and our media tried to sell us that Epstein did it by himself and along with Maxwell, you really, I mean, not only would you have to be naive to believe that, you'd all have to be a borderline moron, to be honest. But yet almost everyone in Washington is pretending that that's the case. And so I love that Ro Khanna and Tom Massey, we've got 2 champions in Congress. We've got and 533 people on the fence, at best. So that's part of the story here. Apparently Maxwell knows who those 25 are. I don't know what other favors we're gonna do for her to get that information, but it doesn't matter if we have the information. Since Epstein is an Israeli agent, we're never going to prosecute any of those people.
So here's what you need to know. In December of last year, Maxwell submitted a self-represented petition to overturn her criminal convictions. I guess existing in Club Med, the Club Med of prisons isn't good enough, even though she should have been in a high security place, considering she's a rapist. Anyway, Maxwell claimed that substantial new evidence has emerged from related civil actions, government disclosures, investigative reports, and documents demonstrating constitutional violations that undermine the fairness of her proceedings. If I had any position of power, I would go out of my way to ensure that the system were more unfair to her. But Courthouse News Service published Maxwell's entire petition last December, and it's now making headlines because of the extraordinary claim that 25 of Epstein's pals escaped justice. 25 people. So keep in mind that Maxwell is claiming that her accusers reached settlements with Epstein's associates, and Maxwell's filing reads verbatim, new evidence reveals that there were 25 men with which the plaintiff lawyers reached secret settlements that could equally be considered as co-conspirators. And keep in mind, it is unclear whether the 25 men who reached these secret settlements also reached deals with the feds, shielding them from prosecution. And there's more. So the filing also claims that 4 of the notorious financier's employees were mentioned in a non-prosecution agreement and in the sex trafficking indictment Epstein faced before he killed himself in jail, allegedly, but they were never charged. So Maxwell claims that she does not know the identities of those individuals and that if she did, she would tell authorities. I wouldn't trust a single word that comes out of this woman's mouth. Let's just put it that way. And of the, this is relevant because on February 9th, Maxwell will sit for deposition before the House Oversight Committee, which I'm looking forward to. Hopefully we learn some interesting information from that deposition, but Cenk, your thoughts?
Yeah, so again, the 2 parts to this. First of all, of course, Ghislaine knows who the 25 are. How does she know there's 25?
I know, seriously.
Why not 24 or 26? You seem to know it pretty well. Guys, every part of this story is a joke on the American people. mainly perpetrated by our politicians, but to some degree working with establishment media. So number one, Ghislaine Maxwell, of course, should be in maximum security. She's one of the biggest child traffickers in American history. She's in the Club Fed, and she gets to run the place. Everybody else has to go in their cells, and she gets to have dinner by herself, etc. She's like Pablo Escobar in a Colombian prison, and running the place. It's a freaking joke. You know why? Because the Israelis run us. And so that's why. Her dad, by the way, is Robert Maxwell. No one in television tells you this because they want to protect Israel. Robert Maxwell was the biggest spy in Israeli history. He stole American nuclear secrets. That's why they have the bomb now.
And he published our schools, our public school systems textbooks for social studies. And
which lied to us about how Israel was the victim in 48 and 67, when that's not remotely true. They did aggressive wars to seize land. They ethnically cleansed 750,000 Palestinians in 1948. So what you're seeing in Gaza now, they already did in 48. They attacked all their neighbors in 67, but we're lied to over and over again by our media and by our politicians because they're in the back pockets of a foreign country. So then you turn to justice here at home, and our government constantly tells us, no, it doesn't matter if it's a Democrat or Republican administration, you are never going to get justice for those girls. We're gonna hide the people who did it forever because the people who did it are the people bribing us. It's not rocket science, it's super obvious. First of all, campaign contributions are legalized bribes. And the Israelis, in that same fashion, bribe 94% of Congress. So they have Congress completely, that's why even when Obama objected to Netanyahu coming, Congress said no. He's our real president. They had him come over and they did standing ovation after standing ovation for him because they're like, there's our dear leader, where's our bribes, where's our bribes? The greatest people betraying us are not the Israelis. It's our own politicians who work for Israel and who say, oh, you wanna rape our children? Go ahead, we'll cover it up. We'll pretend that you're not an Israeli agent. Go look at the drop site news articles. Epstein tried to procure cyber weapons for Israel. He tried to get America to bomb Syria and Iran on behalf of Israel. He set up meetings with the Israeli prime minister and Putin and other world leaders.
He normalized relations between the UAE and Israel. He even played a role in the Iran-Contra.
Yes, because the Israeli agents, Mossad was also involved in Iran-Contra.
It's crazy.
So that brings Epstein into it.
Yeah.
And so since Epstein and Maxwell are the most obvious Israeli agents in human history, all of media and all of our politicians have to lie to you because otherwise how could they serve Israel? So this is the nonsense that's going on in our country. We have to free ourselves from this. We have to have liberation. And the way that you do that and when you stop being occupied by Israel is Operation Consequences. You have to vote them out. We're totally nonviolent, we're for peace, okay? So all consequences means is in a democracy you have political consequences. So go to operationconsequences.com. Any politician that from this day forward gives a single dollar to Israel, vote them out because they're not your representatives, they're Israel's representatives. And if they're not joining Ro Khanna and Tom Massey in demanding justice for Americans, that means they're traitors and they work for Israel. So vote them all out, operationconsequences.com.
Well, why don't we check in on the economy because, well, things aren't really going that well. And so I want to give you the details. Let's get into it.
The economy and inflation ate Joe Biden's presidency alive, and now it is eating Donald Trump's presidency alive.
Well, Harry Enton declared that Donald Trump's presidency is going the same way as Joe Biden's. That is the way of the dodo. And it's all because of the economic situation here in the United States. So here's more of Enton's analysis, and then I'll go to you, Cenk.
Just take a look here, net approval rating on the economy. You go back to this point in the Joe Biden presidency, he was 19 points underwater. You go into Donald Trump's presidency, hey, he started off in the positive territory at plus 6 points. But down he goes, down the slide into the ocean he goes, negative 20 points. Donald Trump is actually in slightly worse position right now in the economy than Joe Biden was in this presidency. Trump administration is focusing too little on lowering prices. The vast majority, 3 in 4 Americans say he's focusing too little on lowering prices. That's why he's going into Iowa. What is he focusing too much on? He's focusing too much on deportations at 53%.
Wow, those polling results are really fascinating. And I think I'm gonna start using Harry Enton as like my alarm clock, right? Just to like get me up out of bed. Yeah. Like he's so energized all of the time.
Yeah, especially when he says the numbers are going up,
down, down.
But up is good for the alarm clock.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, so first of all, Trump is bombing like half the nations on earth, threatening to take over Greenland. He's got mass thugs in the streets. Yes, but brother, what about prices? That's actually the #1 reason why you were elected. What about wages? What about employment? What about the economy? It's like an afterthought for him. Every once in a while, somebody will tell him, hey, you just lost 26 points on the economy, and then he'll come out like, okay, affordability is a hoax, but I believe in it.
No, Jake, I gotta tell you. So like, I came across a Trump video before we came on air today where he's talking about housing prices. And he's like, I don't want housing prices to go down. I want to keep the value of your houses up.
Brother, that ain't the issue.
And by the way, guys, look, if you're a homeowner and you're fortunate enough to be a homeowner, I get it, I understand, right? The value of your home has been inflated over the fact that we have a housing shortage. You need to just suck it up and accept the fact that the value of your home is gonna go down a little bit so we can build more housing and get people off the streets. Like, who wants to live like this?
No, guys, look, it's worse than that. And for homeowners, we're homeowners, it's okay. I don't even know that it's gonna go down an inch, okay? But we've gotta stop the massive increase. Because I've now talked to so many guys that are like average Americans, a barber, a driver, blah, blah, blah. And they're all saying the same thing. I'm so squeezed, I can't save anything.
Right.
I can't, all my money is going to expenses. How the hell am I gonna save like a nickel and a dime and have that add up to a house? So I couldn't do that on this savings. I couldn't buy a house in the old days. In the new days, it's impossible.
Yeah.
I talked to an Ethiopian Uber driver who's gonna go back to Ethiopia because he's like, the dream is dead.
Oh, maybe this is the deportation strategy.
Yeah, I mean, but guys, where are the Americans gonna go?
Yeah,
maybe the Ethiopians can go back home, okay, but we can't, we live here.
So let me give you some more details about the current economic climate here in the US because we do have some more polling from where that came from. So this month, US confidence in the economy hit stunning lows, and that's according to the Conference Board, which is a global nonprofit think tank. So the Conference Board said on Tuesday, actually, that its consumer confidence index cratered 9.7 points to 84.5 in January, falling below even the lowest readings during the COVID-19 pandemic. And then if you take a look at this chart, let's bring this up real quick. You can see that the last time the consumer confidence index came in that low was 2014, and the shaded area marks recessions, okay? So the good news is that as of now, consumer confidence is still, higher than it was in the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis. But what isn't good news, the bad news, is that the trend line is going in the wrong direction. And we do have some more numbers from the Conference Board. Here's what else they found. A measure of Americans' short-term expectations for their income, business conditions, and the job market tumbled 9.5 points. Consumers' assessment of their current economic situation slid by 9.9 points. And the Conference Board survey reported that 23.9% of consumers said jobs were plentiful, down from 27.5% in December. Also, 20.8% of consumers said jobs were hard to get, which was up from 19.1% the month previous. And there is more bad news for job seekers. It is taking a longer period of time for individuals to be able to find a new job. So it now takes an average of more than 11 weeks for an unemployed person in the US to find a new job, the longest since 2021. And that is damning when you consider the fact that a lot of different companies right now are laying people off, including Amazon, which just announced that they are planning to lay off 16,000 corporate employees. AI is having a huge impact already, and things are only gonna get worse from here. So it's definitely concerning, Cenk.
Yeah, guys, I don't want to scare you too much, but it's my job to tell you what's coming. And there's an iceberg coming. And none of our politicians seem to be aware of it. Ro Khanna's working on an AI employment plan from what I've heard, but no one else, right? Wall Street, honestly, I think are a bunch of idiots. They're high on their own supply. They're like, buy, the AI companies are doing well. Yes, but how is every other company going to do when there's massive unemployment? Who's gonna buy their products? So here, let me tell you a story. A friend of mine owns a company. He is talking to others that own companies in tech and digital, et cetera. And there's a race to fire 25% of their staff at all of these companies. They think whoever fires 25% first is gonna have a competitive advantage. But they're all going to fire the 25%. They're just wondering how quickly they can get there. And Amazon has begun already. And by the way, who did they fire? A lot of the guys they hired were software developers. Those are the first guys on the chopping block. AI can do the software development. So that job is gonna get wiped out. I've now heard from the entertainment business, different categories of jobs being wiped out by AI. So there's a giant iceberg up ahead, and it seems like no one in power realizes it. And we're gonna run straight into that iceberg. Look, I think this is one of the easier predictions, but I can't believe that no one else has their hair on fire at this late date on it. There's going to be at least 10% unemployment. And you know what happens when there's 10% unemployment? Depression. So things are gonna get terrible. And all those people are not gonna be able to buy any products. The economy is gonna be obliterated. And we're whistling past the graveyard here. And all we got is nothing but distractions. Oh, let's go start foreign wars. Let's go start wars in our cities in America. Are you insane? We should be spending all of our energy trying to figure out how to deal with this AI catastrophe that's about to hit us. All right, so guys, today I kind of buried the lead. I got two amazing things to tell you about real quick before we leave. In a minute, I'm gonna talk to Dan Osborn. He's an independent running in Nebraska. And so he's a super interesting character. You do not want to miss that interview. How do you run as an independent, not a Democrat or Republican? Is it possible to win that way? We're gonna find out in Nebraska. So that's my next interview. And tomorrow, I'm on the Tucker Carlson show. We recorded it earlier. They're going to release it tomorrow. It's a 2.5 hour conversation. It is largely about Israel, and it's a doozy. So I wouldn't want you to miss that one. And that is gonna come out at noon Eastern tomorrow on their website, and then 1 o'clock on YouTube. So batten down the hatches. Tucker Carlson and myself talking about how do we get our country back on the one issue we definitely agree on. All right, I'm gonna come right back with Dan Osborn.
Wait a minute, hold on 1 second, whoa.
All right, back on the revolution. Cenk Uygur here. So we're gonna have Dan Osborn on in a minute. He's an independent running in Nebraska. That is a tough project, but one I'm really glad he's engaging in. But before we do that, there is one comment left over from the last show that I want to read because it could actually be helpful to you guys too. Doom Mirage, Hafiz Protector, said, please advise on how I can send unbiased article link on shorts from YouTube, proving that IDF are never to be trusted as they fill themselves looting Palestine banks and West Bank. Also, does Trump know who will be the next Iran regime leader if he takes out the current one? Yes, they're planning to put the Shah in as part of their regime change nonsense. Shah is a Farsi word for king, which is another word for dictator. But mainly I wanted to answer his question. If you want to send us some information, pitches@tyt.com. pitches@tyt.com. Thank you, we appreciate it. We learn and grow together, guys, and we do this show together. So this show in particular, Revolution on TYT Network, is about bringing the entire country together and crowdsourcing a revolution, left, right, and middle. And our next guest is perfect for that. Dan Osborn is running as an independent for the Nebraska Senate seat. Dan, welcome, brother.
Thank you, Cenk. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you. How do you run as an independent? Because the Democrats are going to say you're not good enough because you're not a Democrat. Republicans are going to say the same. So how do you thread that needle?
Yeah, well, I first of all, I think the two-party system seems to cater. I love football, so I love football references. Yeah, they seem to be operating in their end zones when I think most people really are within the 40-yard lines. But to run as an independent, I think every state's a little bit different. But here in Nebraska, I don't have to primary. I have to get 4,000 signatures. Spread out evenly between the congressional districts here, which there's 3 of them, to get on the ballot. So ultimately, that's the meat and potatoes of running as an independent outside the two-party structure.
Yeah, so running as an independent is usually difficult, not just for that reason, but also because of structural reasons, especially for the presidency. But for the Senate, it's a little bit more doable structurally. And so, there's something, in my opinion, that's nice about running as an independent. It forces you to care about both Democrats and Republicans, right? And to try to appeal to both. And wouldn't that be amazing if you served all of your citizens? But one of the ways that you show that is through how you message. So I want to actually read a couple of your tweets here and then talk about it. And then later we'll also have some fun. Apparently you ran into Charlton Heston. I want to talk about that and fun stuff like that too. But first, here's the first tweet. You wrote, there's nothing that pisses me off more than seeing an elderly person far beyond retirement age hunched over and working a cash register at a corporate chain store to pay their bills. This shouldn't be normal in this country. So I'm curious, can you get a sense when you do a post like that on X, is it more left-wingers or more right-wingers who say yes to that, or equal?
Man, it's equal. I mean, we all have grandmothers or had, depending on how old we are. I'm not fortunate enough to have my grandparents with me anymore, but I mean, you can imagine your aging mother or your grandmother hunched over a cash register at Dollar General because she can't make ends meet. That's not the world we should be living in one of the richest nations in the world. We should be protecting our workers. That's the basis of my campaign. I'm unapologetically pro-worker. I'm the billionaires, they're going to be fine, but no, yeah. So that does resonate with a lot of people on both sides.
Yeah, so I'm going to read another one here because it's going to lead to a much broader conversation about a fight against corporate power in Nebraska. You wrote, in 1970, cattle ranchers earned 70 cents of every consumer beef dollar. Today, they just get 30 cents. Where did the other 40 cents go? Straight into the pockets of JBS, Tyson, Cargill, and National Beef. The big 4 are robbing ranchers blind while consumers pay record prices. Both sides are getting screwed except a monopolist in the middle. So Dan, there's 2 parts of that that's really interesting. So first of all, of course, that's just a fact. So there's no question about that. But number 1 is the phenomenon. Number 2 is the cover up, right? So in terms of the phenomenon, it's funny, I went for a ride with some ranchers. I forget, it was a year ago or 2 years ago, and they told me this same exact thing. They said, hey, the problem with the ranching these days is that we're just not getting any of the profits the big four are. So for those who are unfamiliar with it, tell us how that worked, and how do we get from 1970 to here in that particular industry?
Yeah, well, I think you'd have to go back to the turn of the century in the 1900s, when the Packers and Stockyards Act of 1921 was passed. So at the turn of the century, the Packers that started to form a monopoly, there was 5 of them, and they controlled the entire industry, from the transportation to even the newspapers that reported about them. And they really consolidated the industry. So the producers were getting screwed, the consumers were getting screwed. And so the President Woodrow Wilson stepped in and said, you know what, enough of this. We're going to break up these monopolies. So they did with the Packers and Stockyards Act, and through a lot of other antitrust legislation, as well as Teddy Roosevelt was involved in that. And so they started to break up. Well, then they started to reconsolidate after, I suppose it was around 1980, they started to consolidate. So fast forward today, there's 4 of them, right? And 2 of them that you named are foreign-owned entities, which shouldn't be possible, especially when you're talking about our food source. So they've consolidated again. They control the inputs for producers, whether you're a row crop farmer or whether you're a rancher. They control the inputs that the farmers buy from, and they control the outputs that the producers sell to. So the people who are farmers, and 2% of them, 2% of our population feed the rest of us. That's a problem. We got to keep them profitable. And again, it's the monopolies making the money, while us, the consumers and the producers, are getting screwed over, quite frankly.
So Dan, the way that I see this is corporate rule is squeezing us all, right? It's like that trash compactor in the original Star Wars movie. The walls are closing in on us. And it makes sense. Corporations eventually, especially if they can buy off our politicians, will have enough power to squeeze us to the point where we are at a minimum viable state. We could barely survive because they're going to take every red cent they can. Their imperative is to maximize profit. And you gave a really interesting example there of Woodrow Wilson, the president of the United States, stepping in and protecting American citizens. But that doesn't happen anymore. Our politicians work for them, not for us. And of course, money in politics is rampant, and corporations have totally taken over. So what's so frustrating to me, and I'm curious as an independent how you feel about this, is it seems like neither the Democrats nor the Republicans ever talk about this, and neither does the media. That mainstream media actively covers up the largest phenomenon there is, because it isn't just about beef packing. Are you kidding me? This applies in every industry. They're squeezing the life out of all of us. So what do you think is the #1 problem causing this, both in politics and media?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it starts with campaign finance. Robin Williams, the late comedian, said it best that our politicians should be wearing NASCAR jackets with patches of their sponsors, so we know how they're going to vote, right? And every industry, almost every industry in this country, has been consolidated all the way down to our youth sports, which is insane. Whether you're talking about ag or healthcare or even single family homes, it's getting out of control, and they're doing it wide out in the open right now. Like Tyson, for example, closing a meatpacking plant here in Nebraska and Lexington, 3,000 workers losing their job in a town of 11,000, and they just settled a lawsuit for price manipulation, market manipulation, for $82 million. And they're doing it out in the open. They don't care because they're the ones who can afford to buy a senator. So that's where I think the root cause is. That's where we have to start. We have to clean up our elections, and we have to clean up the amount of money. It shouldn't cost $100 million to run for U.S. Senate per candidate, mind you, in Ohio, Texas, Florida, Montana, and $1 billion to run for president. It's out of control. We have to dial it back and clean up the money in our elections.
You know who's got $100 million in Montana to buy an election? No one. Corporations do. That's it. And so, and you know, they every once in a while the politicians just admit it. You know, there was this speech by Congressman out of Alabama where he said, "Yeah, if you want to buy a committee chairmanship, you have to give $1 million." So who are you going to get the $1 million from? There's nobody in Iowa or Montana or Nebraska that's got $1 million. So you go and ask the corporation you're supposed to be regulating, and obviously what's unspoken, that's Mo Brooks, by the way, who said that. And of course, you have to make sure you don't regulate them. Make sure they shut down the plant and you don't say anything about it, and then you work for them and not your voters. So I'm sick of it. I love that you're fighting against it. So I want to talk about your opponents in a second too, but how about Kellogg? So back in the day, did you strike against Kellogg?
Yeah. Back in 2021, after COVID, you know, during COVID, I suppose that's where I cut my teeth was in politics, was on the picket line. In 2020, during COVID, at the height of COVID, we were essential workers. We were working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, 16 hours on Sundays and Saturdays, just like keeping that plant open. At one point in time, 50% of our workforce was forced quarantined and/or sick, and we kept four plants in the United States running at 100% capacity. And they made record profits. They went from $19 billion to $21 billion profit. The CEO gave himself a $2 million raise. The board enriched themselves. The stockholders enriched themselves. Capitalism at its finest, right? But then our contract expired. We figured we'd get a sliver of the pie, but instead they said, you know what, we're taking your health insurance. We're gonna take your cost of living adjustment, our only form of wage increases, and then we're gonna implement a 2-tier wage system with no path for a lower tier employee to go the upper tier. So we negotiated it for 2 weeks. Every time any one of those 3 issues was brought up, they would stand up and walk out of the negotiating room. So they knew what they were doing. They wanted that strike. And you know, we shut down 4 plants and we walked off the job to preserve our wages and benefits. What they didn't realize is the value that, you know, our tenures had brought to that company. Like, I was a mechanic there for 20 years. You just don't learn that overnight. My experience there was invaluable. Those machines have personalities. You can't just bring somebody in off the street and expect them just to hit the go button. You know, these are skilled jobs, and they found out that you know, you can't just bring in a workforce to break a union and do it overnight. So we were able to win a contract, and you know, I was really proud of the work that we did, and I was really proud of my members for standing up for what they believed in, and you know, not settling for you know, a menial wage where we can barely scrape by in our lives.
This is why I get so frustrated with the media, because they have these, they talk in this absurd language as if corporations are people. Oh, they'll do the right thing, they'll do the patriotic thing, and they'll share their profits because it's the right thing to do. That's not a thing. They're a machine. They're an amoral machine, and they are set to maximize profit. Are they going to do that at the expense of their own workers? Of course they are. Of course they are. And so that's why you need unions that's against these giant multi-billion-dollar corporations. And then they say, oh, we only made 21 billion in profit. We don't have enough. What an absurd thing to say. Did they do anything crazy to you guys while you were striking?
Yeah, well, upper management, you know, would consistently say, we hope you guys lose your houses, hope you lose your cars, hope you go bankrupt. And then, you know, when we were out on the picket line, the first week of the strike was kind of the honeymoon phase, right? We worked so much during COVID. To get any time off was almost a celebration in itself. We would, you know, have beers and barbecue and play music, but then the reality of our, you know, not getting a paycheck and insurance set in. And you know, some people got in trouble on the picket line for you know, abusing alcohol and getting a little rowdy. So they filed a lawsuit saying that, you know, if we continue this behavior, that we can't picket anymore. We have to picket, I think it was like 100 yards away or something, which would essentially have it would have been very damaging. So what the company did is they would send in, we called them goon squads, where they would come in and bring champagne bottles and bring in beer and liquor and try to get us, to drink it on camera so they can continue, the lawsuit to basically break the strike. And we didn't fall for it. We knew what was going on. Our members were very informed, but certainly a couple of things the company did during that strike. Like, again, you mentioned it. They have no soul. Their main purpose is profit, to turn a profit so stockholders can enrich themselves. That's the main job of a corporation. They are not people, and that is Citizens United, right? That's coming back full fold to campaign finance reform. They do it through Citizens United, that states, Supreme Court ruling states corporations are people, money's free speech, and therefore they can donate an unlimited amount of money to an independent expenditure of a campaign. Dark money in politics, that's what we got to clean up. That's what I'm fighting for.
Yeah, well, this country's changed so much. It used to be run by people, now it's run by corporations. So, you mentioned that, trying to trick you with the alcohol and the dirty tricks. In the old days, there were real human beings. Like you talked about the Packers, and as you were talking about how they were, manipulating things, etc. The Bears fans in the crowd are like, "Yo, I knew there was a reason to hate the Packers." But now another football reference: the Steelers, when the NFL players went on strike, all the other owners were against it. But the Dan Rooney, who ran the Steelers, the owner, came out with beer to the picket line and would have beers with his players because he supported the strike. That's back when we had real human beings running companies here in America, and we're losing that out completely. So, all right, so I got to ask you the standard questions. Do you take corporate PAC money?
No, of course not. I don't want to be a part of the problem. I want to be a part of the solution. In fact, we've had over 30,000 individual donations to my campaign. So my campaign is powered by people, the way it should be, the way the framers of the Constitution, of the forefathers intended this government to be, a government by and for the people, as opposed to my opponent, Pete Ricketts, who's only got about 1,000 individual donors. All his money comes from, of course, the corporate PACs, because he comes from a billionaire family themselves who owns a professional baseball team, and I think he embodies everything that's wrong with politics. So the stage is set in Nebraska. It's a mechanic versus a billionaire. I love my odds. I've done it before. I'll take them on all day long.
Ricketts is a spoiled little child, isn't he? Didn't his daddy make all the money?
He did, yeah. His dad is Joe Ricketts, and no fault to Joe Ricketts, obviously. He started something amazing. TD Ameritrade. They sold to Charles Schwab, but yeah. So Pete hasn't had to work a day in his life. In fact, all of his photos, he goes out and does photo ops with farmers. He's got a pair brand new leather gloves on, brand new cowboy boots, and a Carhartt he picked up probably at Boot Barn on his way to the photo shoot. And so he calls me fake, but I'm pretty sure Nebraskans are going to figure out who the real fake senator is. That's Pete Ricketts.
So a guy who's a mechanic who led a strike against Kellogg's is the fake guy, and the billionaire boy who grew up in a billionaire bubble is the real guy, who has almost no donors other than corporate donors. That's the real guy. Come on, okay, these guys are a joke.
And he'll probably spend $50 million against me, calling me fake and calling me a radical liberal, whatever he's going to say, because that's all he's got. Because he's got no record of his own. He was a 2-term governor, and he's been in the Senate for a couple of years, but he's got nothing of his own to run off of. So he's just gonna badmouth me. But you know what? I can take it. I'm a big boy, but well, hopefully. We're gonna run a strong campaign. We're gonna do 200 publicly advertised town halls. We're gonna get out there where people are at. We're gonna talk to them, learn their issues, and learn what they think a U.S. senator should be doing for them. And yeah, that's how we're gonna win this.
So, is there a Democrat in the race or no?
Currently, there is not a Democrat in the race. No.
Okay, got you. And how about AIPAC money? Do you take AIPAC money?
No, we don't. You know, if I can't relate the money back to working people and organizations that want to uplift working people, I don't want your money. I'm not interested in that.
Yeah, I'm sure Ricketts agrees and doesn't take any corporate money or foreign government money. I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
While we're doing this, I'm going to look up Ricketts on APAC Tracker. I'll get back to you on that in a second. Okay, but all right, let's turn to personal stuff for a second. So, okay, you got me curious. I saw it somewhere online. When did you run into Charlton Heston?
Oh, Charlton Heston, man, I was in high school. I was a senior in high school. My dad, he worked for the railroad, and so him and my mom, he got offered a job in Bellingham, Washington, and he couldn't pass up. And this was in the middle of my senior year, so he was like, "Hey, we're going to Bellingham." I'm like, "No, you're going to Bellingham, maybe, but I'm not." Right? I wasn't going to leave my girlfriend and my basketball team and my baseball team, so I stayed behind and I got an apartment. And I got a job working at as Alley's in a Marriott restaurant here in town in Omaha, and I was a busboy. And part of my job was to, give water to the customer and tell them their server's going to be with them, maybe give them a menu. And my dad, I watched a lot of Charlton Heston's growing up because my dad liked the movies, Planet of the Apes, Moses, etc. So he sits down, and I recognized him right away. And I said, "You're Charlton Heston." And he had a book in front of his face, and he looked up at me and he goes, "Yes." And he put his face back in the book, and I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "I'm going to push this a little bit further." I said, "Do you mind asking why you're in town?" And he said, "A seminar," and he put his face back in the book, and I go, "Oh, okay." He's kind of being an a-hole right now. So I had the pitcher of water in his glass, and I said, "Hey, Chuck, how do you want your water? Do you want it regular or do you want it parted down the middle?" Because in Moses he parted the Red Seas, and he looked up from his book and he goes, "Regular." And he put his face back in the book. I'm like, all right. So I gave him his water. I bust a table, and I'm putting the dishes away in the kitchen. And my boss comes and taps me on the shoulder, and he said, "Hey, Dan, that's some of the funniest stuff I've ever heard, but I got to fire you because Charlton Heston wants you fired." So I got fired because of Charlton Heston.
Wow. He took your job from your cold, unemployed hands.
Yeah, I didn't know he was involved in the NRA or anything. I mean, and shoot, I was a senior in high school. I didn't care about any of that stuff. But yeah,
Jesus.
Yeah. I figured it'd be honored that an 18-year-old kid knows who he is. But
yeah, apparently not. But by the way, I mean, I love that Ricketts, the billionaire boy Ricketts, calling you fake. You were like a bus boy and all these different experiences that you had. It doesn't get any more real than you. All right, so talk to me about how the race. I'm gonna come back to personal because I can't stop. But talk to me about how the race is going. So, like, does the media treat Ricketts like, oh yeah, he cares about the people of Nebraska, and maybe Dan does too, and they've got different ideas on caring about. Like, do they ever talk about? No, Ricketts has taken a tremendous amount of money from this lobby, that lobby, the other lobby. By the way, I looked it up, $308,000 from APAC Tracker. Why doesn't the billionaire pay his own bills? What is he selling out Nebraska to Israel for? But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, we've had the third poll come out in this race, all independent polls. We haven't ran one of our own yet, but each one of those polls has us essentially tied. A statistic tie after Ricketts has spent $2 million in the state against me, and so I'm happy about that. I think he's got his work cut out for him. These guys, they don't go out in public. They don't do town halls. They don't go talk to people because they're afraid of getting yelled at. I don't care, man. I'll go talk to anybody because I'm going to relate to you about your paycheck, because I call it paycheck populism. I get a paycheck every week as a steam fitter. I know how much comes in, I know how much goes out, and I know how hard it is right now, whether it's healthcare costs, expenses, or grocery costs. I know how hard it is, man, and I relate to people based off of that. And we have ideas on how to curb inflation, and that's what we talk to people about. But then education. There's so many other issues. I feel like I'm going off on a tangent. Maybe I'm not answering your question directly, but yeah. So the state of the race is going good, but we know the storm's coming because he's got an unlimited amount of money. And but again, we're going to win this on the ground. He can be on TV and the radio. That's fine. But we're going to be in your town. We're going to be in your shops on Main Street talking to people. And that's old school politics, I guess.
Yeah. So Dan, I'm curious about how Nebraska voters are reacting, right? Because of course Nebraska voted for Trump, right? It's a red state. It's not, and Ricketts is trying to hide behind that. Oh, yeah, I'm for Trump. Oh, you have to vote for me. Don't use your mind. Don't be independent. Just be a zombie, right? So that's going to be his go-to move. Now the question is, how's it working? And by that I mean pretty specifically, like when you talk to Trump voters, are they open to hearing what you have to say? And are they a little concerned about some of the things that Trump has done, or no, they're still in Trump's camp completely?
Yeah, so when I do a lot of door knocking, and we have an app where I can tell who's a registered voter and what party they voted. I predominantly go and I knock on conservatives and independents' doors. And if I'm driving around and I see a Trump flag flying on a house or a sign in the yard, I go knock on the door because I want to understand, right? I want to talk to people. And what I've learned is they're good people. Like a lot of them are just, they're good people. They care deeply about their family and their children. And when I start to talk to them about individual policies, we can agree on so much. There's things that we're not going to see eye to eye, and I don't focus on that. But what I do is I focus on what we can agree on as we're having a conversation. And a lot of what we agree on, especially in the rural areas, is tariff policies are hurting rural America. The foreign policies are hurting rural America. Bean farmers don't have anybody to sell their product to, right? And again, the inauguration, there was all the tech billionaires. So I kind of saw the writing on the wall. Okay, I see who's important. Because if I was ever president, I would have bus drivers and nurses and teachers and carpenters in the front row of my inauguration. That's who I'd have, because that's who I want to represent.
Yeah.
And so, again, going back to individual policy, there's so much we can agree on, and most people just love their family, and most people just want to be left alone too.
Yeah, so I don't think we agree on everything. I think that's kind of obvious, but my theory is that we actually secretly agree on 70% of issues, but the only reason we don't realize that is because media drives us to hate each other, and they take the most extreme person on the right and the most extreme person on the left, and they go, that represents the other side, now go hate them, right? So what do you think? Obviously I'm pulling that number from my hat, but what do you think about 70%? Does that sound about right to you? Lower, higher?
I would say it's higher. I would say most of us, regardless of on your party affiliation, I would say it's closer to 90%. I think if you ask a Democrat what the Republicans believe, they would come up with the whatever media outlet they watch, and then vice versa with a Republican, they would say the same thing about a Democrat. But as you get into, I suppose, the weeds of policies and education and healthcare and stuff like that, man, we are so closely aligned as people, regardless of our party affiliation. And it's frustrating to try to break through all that noise too, right? Because I have a hard time with media trying to decipher what's real, what's not real, and as consumers of media, we have to be responsible. But I think ultimately the story is, go talk to your neighbor. If you're watching this and they're flying a Trump flag, go talk to them. You don't have to argue. You don't have to show up defensive and argue, and just talk to them. I think you'll find if you sit down and you crack a beer and you talk about stuff, you're going to agree on probably 90% of stuff. That's what I found.
Okay, well, my sense is that that's about right. I have it a little lower than you do. 90% is very optimistic and wonderful. I hope you're right. But 70, even if I'm right, 70% is a giant number. What are we doing fighting nonstop? Why don't we work on the things we agree on first? Which, by the way, I mean, who's in favor of higher prices? No one other than corporations, right? Who's in favor of lower wages? No one other than corporations. So these are the most important issues. And so I'm glad there's independents like you out there that are emphasizing that. But you did mention beer and beans at some point in those answers. And apparently someone on our team has secret intel on your favorite meal according to your wife. So I'm gonna ask you about that. What is your favorite meal?
Well, it's got to, hands down, it's got to be a chili dog, man. I fell in love with chili dogs going to baseball games, and chili dogs with cheese and onions, man, hands down, the best meal somebody could eat.
You know what I say to that? America.
That's right. Right.
All right, hope to one day go down to Nebraska and have a chili cheese dog with you.
Hey, come to the College World Series. It's a tradition in Omaha. It's a fun time.
All right, guys. Dan Osborn's running as an independent in Nebraska, and he's scaring both parties and the media. OsbornForSenate.com, real populist. OsbornForSenate.com. Dan, thanks for joining us, brother.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. All right, guys. We are trying to find you folks who are trying to serve the American people. And so come on, let's do this revolution together. Peaceful, nonviolent, political revolution. And today, on top of all of this, we launched OperationConsequences.com. Vote out the incumbents who are taking Israeli money, like Pete Ricketts, but he's one of 94% of Congress. And vote out people giving our money to foreign governments. Like Israel, when we need it in places like Nebraska and all across the country. So, like I said earlier on the Young Turks, big interview with Tucker Carlson coming up tomorrow. Check it out on his show, and then we'll talk about it here. So, big show coming up tomorrow on the Young Turks as well. And let's keep this peaceful, nonviolent democratic revolution going and try to take our government back. All right, much love. We'll see you soon.